Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. Talk about cutting it down to the wire. Just getting the topic list done like hour before we're going to record here. But I'm busy all day tomorrow, so there was no way I was going to postpone tonight. So
yeah,
but it's here. We got lots of questions. We got lots of multi-part questions. So
yeah, I noticed that.
All prepared.
Very excited.
Sort of.
Answer some questions.
Oh yeah, do
the question thing. Answering questions. Did you see the Defenders? Did you watch the Defenders?
I've watched about half of the first episode. That's about it. haven't gotten very far.
The first night, it was on a Friday, right? It came out Friday morning or something. So Friday night, we had friends over and we were enjoying some tasty cocktails, and then they left, and I thought, hey, I'm feeling very spry. I'll go watch episode 2 of the Defenders.
Sure.
Nope. I got about a third of the way into it, and I fell asleep. Straight up, just fell asleep.
And it's not the fault of the show. That's
I was just excited. I got up at 5 a.m. the morning before, Thursday morning, and then 7 a.m., which is early for me. Some people out there are like, what? I'm like, yes, okay, sorry. I don't keep your hours. I used to, and I hated it, but now I don't have to, so whatever. I was pretty tired.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, I did watch a little bit more of it last night, but I didn't quite get through the intro of Iron Fist being Iron Fist at the very beginning. That's how far I got.
In the half of the first episode that I've seen, I'm like, yeah, Jessica Jones is easily my favorite out of this group. Keep
just
her
like the shows
on the screen more, and everybody else can go in the background.
We'll see how it turns out. We'll see how it turns out. I'm willing to give it the old college try. I'm gonna let it go. See how it goes. I'm gonna go ahead right now and open up the Ecobee control panel for my AC, because I can already tell you this is going to be an issue. I've already lowered it once, so we'll see. Yeah, I said remember me, so remember me, stupid program. That's one thing I can't get Alexa to do is control my thermostat. I don't know if I know. Yeah. I don't know if I'm saying it wrong or what, but it's not working. All right. So the Defenders we have not watched. That's bad. Is anything else going on? Anything else you've done that's interesting?
We're going to be exchanging the LG Ultra HD Blu-ray player that my parents got, because we got one of the ones that vibrates. Apparently, this is something that several people... Well, you know how... Well, so the disc inside is spinning, and it must be slightly off kilter.
Oh,
because you can hear it going, and then if you put your hand on it, you feel it going. So this has been reported by quite a few people that there are units of this particular model, the UP970 from LG, doing this. So some people say, hey, mine has worked absolutely fine. Other people I exchanged it and got one that works just fine. So it's a unit-to-unit thing. Theirs happens to be one of the ones that's a little off balance. So
somebody over there that was assembling those for pennies on the dollar.
Exactly. Yeah.
In China.
Yeah. Very quickly mass-produced. It's not
I don't
a
care.
Shock.
I'm out of here.
Plus shipped by the postal service from across the country, so not impossible that some shipping jostling took place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. That can definitely happen. All right. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can also go to the website, www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRantPodcast. YouTube.com/C. I kind of feel like that's a grade. I don't understand why we got a C. They didn't know what we were doing.
We're on the C list.
It's above Kathy Griffin, though. She's on the D list, right? Wasn't she a D list? Is that
her show? Self-proclaimed, yeah.
Yeah. So, hey. C list. YouTube.com/C/AVRant. That's where you'll find your questions being answered in full color and with our faces, for what that's worth. And you can see me in my Pokemon shirt.
That's right.
Which if I had realized I was wearing it when I started the podcast, I would have changed.
Totally fine.
It's, sometimes I embarrass myself with how geeky I can be. Like,
hey, you talked at length about it just 2 podcasts ago.
You find out.
Not a shock to anyone.
I know no one's shocked, but still, I'll find somebody asking me a question, and 7 minutes into my response, I realized they were just being polite. And you're like, oh, you didn't want to really know how to calibrate a subwoofer. I'm like, okay, all right. But now that I'm on the way, I'm just going to go ahead and finish. I'm bringing it home.
Finish the thought.
Finish the thought. That's right. If you want to reach us directly, you can contact Rob at avrant.com. His Twitter is at FirstReflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is at avrant_Tom. We have a producer named Austin. He has a Twitter at Austin, Ten Pond. He takes care of, he helps with the questions, does a lot of stuff with the videos, does all the videos really, except for the main one, the big one that you do. And and I just wanted to be said that no one asked Rob to do that. He insisted. So,
well, people did ask. They're like,
well,
I didn't want the full thing. So
I told you that you could tell those people that we weren't going to do it anymore, and you were like, "Well, it's not that big of a hassle. I'll just do it."
Yeah.
So, I just think that you should get the credit you deserve. And if you were a full-time employee, that was something I would make you do on your own time,
right?
Not on company time.
Because I get paid so much by this podcast.
We are rolling in the fat AVRant dollars. The fat AVRant dollars. Austin, our producer, does the videos. He also has his own podcast, the We Watch Movies podcast. That's actually a podcast about movies.
Jeez.
Watching movies. It's actually about watching people watching movies.
Okay. You gotta throw some kind of curveball in there, because, man, that is... You talked about phoning it in the other week. That is some phoning it in.
That is phoning it in. Yes, no, because I usually try to think of something beforehand, and I didn't this time. But the reality is what they do is they sit at the very front of the movie theater. They bring chairs in, and they sit there like way before the movie starts. And people come in, and they sit down, and they watch people as they're watching.
Right, they turn around and face the other way. They face the audience.
Exactly.
All right,
they're facing the audience. The We Watch Movies should be the We Watch You Watching Movies podcast,
but too long. We watch movies.
Too long, clearly. I gotta figure out a way to extradite myself from this We Watch Movies podcast thing.
Nope, too late now. It's the Bob's Burgers, something written on the chalkboard every episode.
I know, but they have like a room of writers.
They do.
I had a piece of paper with a bunch of things on it, and it's gone. Somebody cleaned it. It's gone. Somebody cleaned this room, and it left. Disappointed. See the eclipse? Did you do the eclipse? You're too north for the eclipse.
We were too far north for totality, but we got just under 80% here, so it was definitely noticeable. I was working, so I couldn't really stop and put on proper eye protection and get a really good look at it. But my dad had a telescope set up in his backyard and got some photos, so look at those.
I made a little pinhole viewer, box viewer thing. I worked okay. The best thing that worked really is my dad took some cardboard and just like a hole punch and punched a couple of holes in it and just held it over the ground, and that was the easiest way to see it. It was really quite visible that way. So, anyways, if you caught that, great. If you didn't, I really don't think it matters. This is AVRant, the pod. I mean, people get really excited about these things. They're like, "Oh, it's going to be an eclipse. What does it mean?" Nothing. Don't mean nothing. It's just the moon, just doing its thing. AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. So, people have. Mm-hmm. And those people sometimes want to say thank you when we answer those questions. And one of the ways they say thank you is they go to www.avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. There they're able to give us a PayPal donation. So we want to thank Elongo, Brandon, and Fred for the donations this week.
Yeah, Elongo, Brandon, Fred, thank you very much for those donations. We appreciate it.
They will be going to our coffers to help pay for our hosting fees and other such things as they come along. If you can't support or don't want to support the podcast monetarily, we totally understand. If you can figure out a way to support us, just let us know so that we can thank you on the podcast. For example, Herb from Cross Spectrum Labs heard about our upcoming subwoofer review and other things with that's what Austin's going to be doing. Mm-hmm. And he volunteered on the Twitters to send us a calibrated U-Mic 1 for Austin to use for his forthcoming SVS dual subwoofer setup tutorial, and I guess it's a tutorial and a bit of a review. So thank you, Herb, for that.
Yeah, definitely, Herb. Thank you so much. Hugely generous and very much appreciated. That's going to go to good use.
very much. Jason ordered a Yamaha Avantage RXA 760 receiver from Accessories for Less for his parents. Excuse me, and he let them know that he let Accessories for Less know that it was because of us recommending them that he did that. So thank you,
congrats on that purchase. I think your parents will enjoy that very much.
And lastly, Byron bought a calibrated U-Mic 1 and a mini DSP from Cross Spectrum Labs, and he let Herb know that it was because of us talking about it all the time. So thank you, Byron, and thank you very much for your timeliness, because that worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah, thanks, Byron. Congrats on those purchases. And hey, that offsets the lovely donation from Herb a little bit. So around and round it goes. Very nice.
Around it goes. It's paying it forward or sideways. We're paying it. We're actually not paying it. We're giving. We're giving type of people. We're giving you information and
I suggest
hours
we
of our
speed
time.
through the news and comments because we have so many questions coming up.
Let's do it. The TLC P Series 4K HDR Dolby Vision full array local dimming Roku TVs, that rolls off the tongue, that garnered so much praise for its excellent performance at a very affordable price will remain exclusively a 55-inch model. TLC had previously said that they would launch 50 and 65-inch versions, but now they have canceled those plans, probably because some suppliers said we're not going to give them to you because you're undercutting us.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shame because definitely looking forward to the 65-inch model that they said was going to come out for $1,000, which would have undercut Vizio. And I mean, they got 72 zones of local dimming in the 55-inch P series from TCL. So across the board, it's been very well praised. If 55 inches is what you want, still a great choice, but unfortunately won't be coming in any other sizes this year.
Yeah, Apple has set aside a budget of $1 billion to create its own original TV shows. They're all going to feature dongles very prominently.
Most likely.
Everybody's going to have an iPhone, and they're going to all have Beats by Dre headphones, guaranteed. Back in June, they signed agreements with some former Sony Pictures television executives to head up the new division. For comparison, Netflix is expected to spend $6 billion on their original content this year. So, Apple's
just in case you thought $1 billion was a tremendous amount of money, it's it's certainly not insignificant, but they're not going to be immediately competing with the likes of Netflix. Netflix has a lot of original series now. So, this is yet another provider getting into the, as if we needed another to get into the original content business. But here comes Apple. They can certainly afford it, so...
I remember on this podcast when Netflix announced the streaming thing, and I looked into it and talked about it in the podcast, and people were talking about whether or not they'll ever be able to do 1080p, and how all their content was crap. It was just all really old movies that nobody wanted to see at all, and all of that. And I mean, I was dubious. I'll be honest with you. I remember saying on this podcast, you could probably find it if you really looked, that I was dubious that this was really going to ever go anywhere. But you gotta look at Netflix as going, they really knew what they were doing.
Yeah. It isn't clear, though, if Apple is going to make these series like you purchase each series or each episode individually as you do currently with their service, or whether they're going to set up some kind of subscription thing. I mean, their music subscription service doesn't seem like it's completely taken off. I mean, it's not doing bad, but it's not doing fantastic either. So it'll be interesting to see what Apple does.
I really feel like, knowing Apple, they're going to want to sell episode to episode through iTunes. I feel like they're going to do that. We'll see what happens. But good on Netflix for still being my favorite as of right now. Mostly because the Amazon Prime interface is still hot garbage. Lee, these are comments here. Lee says plastic window tint aren't just for cars and LEDs. And LEDs, all right, whatever. Oh, LEDs, I remember now. It works great on theater windows as well, and has much less aesthetic impact on a room than blackout curtains. He also says it's cheap if you have the skill to apply it to the window yourself. I never really thought of such a thing, but sure, you can now, if you can put really dark window tint and then...
tint your home windows.
I don't know. Seems weird. But
I don't know about removing it afterward, too, because I imagine when you go to sell the place, you're probably not going to not want to have tinted windows on your house. But there must be a way to remove that, right?
It's a little. I mean, how do you get that stuff off your car? It's not. I mean, it can come off, right? I mean, I see it come off. I see people who have applied it incorrectly and it has bubbled and come off. But I don't know. Maybe Lee can tell us about that too. Chris shared a link with us to the $129 low felt basslet. It's basslet, Basslet, basslet. I call it because it seems more like a fish on your wrist than a tactile. Anyways, it's a tactile transducer that you wear on your wrist just like a watch. It uses bone conduction to give you the sense that you're feeling deep bass throughout your body. It comes with a wireless transmitter that you plug into any headphone jack. That transmitter passes through the headphone jack signal to any pair of wired headphones, and it transmits the audio signal to the basslet or basslet on your wrist. This is super dumb. That's my review of that. It's super dumb.
All right.
Okay, there is no way that you are going to shake my wrist and my whole body is going to feel like I'm feeling bass.
Yeah, quite a few people who got the early ones because it was like a Kickstarter project.
Yeah.
They're like, can you make it so the transmitter works with 2 of these so that I can put one on each wrist and feel a bit more balanced? So I'm like, okay. Well, if that's already the case, then I don't know, maybe you put one on each ankle as well. And...
Yeah, really, the necklace, belt. The one review I saw of this that made it sound like it actually had a use was somebody who was editing audio and was using it to know when the bass was doing what the bass was supposed to do without having to have headphones on, basically, right. or something. Because all speakers coming out of your laptop or whatever, they're not going to really be able to give you that low bass. But this thing will at least tell you that there is supposed to be bass.
Right,
like, oh yeah, I can feel
you
the
can
bass.
at least detect it. Yeah.
Anyways, it's super dumb. Michael wanted to share an online ABX audio test to help listeners determine whether they can detect a difference between lossy and lossless audio tracks. We'll have that link up at our website, www.avrant.com.
I'm a big fan of blind testing, blind comparison.
We did this.
Well, this is a different one. It's just another place where you can go and try it out. But
the website looked different.
Test.
I thought it was just a different website, but it was the same test. It's a different test. You're saying.
Chances are, if you're being honest, it's not going to be much better than a coin flip.
Yeah. Byron just wanted to share his latest upgrades. As mentioned, he ordered his U-Mic 1 and Mini DSP from Cross Spectrum Labs. He also pounced on a Denon AVR X4300H from Accessories for Less to replace his beloved X4000. I'm thinking of doing the same. Believe me, I got the itch. The
X4300H is down to $700 at Accessories for Less. That is crazy.
I'm just telling you, my wife is going to straight up kill me if I order a receiver. But it's not even funny.
I can't imagine it getting much less expensive for a receiver that can do 11 speakers. That's crazy.
So now that he's got a X4300, it's time for Atmos. He bought 4 Prime SVS Prime elevation speakers to create a 5.2.4 system. However, he's done a ton of experimentation with the positioning of his dual PC2000 subs, and while the bass has been tactile and excellent in several of the different setups, he still had the slight sense of directionality. Plus, he's in a large open concept room, so it isn't as simple as just putting the 2 subs across the room from each other. So he ordered another pair? He's got PC2000s. So now he's going to order a pair of PB2000s to make his system 5.4.4. He's planning on using the Mini DSP and Andy C's, I don't know who that guy is, multi-sub optimizer software, and he'll report back on the results. So we look forward to hearing from Byron on all of that. Byron is single? Is Byron single?
Nope.
Byron, dude, tell me.
But he is a lieutenant commander, so he can say what goes.
Byron, can you talk to my wife about me getting a new receiver? Because she's gonna straight up kill me. Because I got the itch so bad. That is some wild stuff, Byron. But we're all envious. Dude, straight up, talk to my wife. All right, I'll give you her email. I'll give her phone. Okay, maybe that's weird. I'll give you her email address. Let's get to the questions here. My first question is, Byron, how did you do that? Okay. Sorry. Craig would like to answer some questions that we had from him for 2 weeks ago. So I guess he sent a question. We don't know what they're talking about because we don't know this. So he's going to tell us stuff. And he sent pictures. So you'll be seeing those on the YouTube channel. If you haven't, we will tell you a little bit about them as we go through them. His room is 18 by 24 by 8 with an opening to his hallway. So it seems as though, from our previous advice, they should opt for dual ported subwoofers rather than SB2000s. Is that correct? We're looking at his pictures here.
Yep. So it's, the back is open to the kitchen area, and I
And
guess
the
what would be
hallway.
the dining area, although it doesn't really look like it's set up to be a dining area at the moment. But open to a hallway next to the kitchen. There are doors at the end of the hallway that he can close, but, he's dealing with a fair amount of cubic footage, more than the 3,000 or 3,500 cubic feet that the
Right.
SB 2000 could pressurize on its own. So yes, I would definitely say go for some PC or PB 2000 subs. Those should be sufficient for that
In
space.
your room, I would probably recommend PC 2000s
Yep,
because
yep.
it doesn't look like it looks like floor space is going to be at a premium, and dude, that PB 2000 is big.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hear about it from Byron in a couple of weeks. So we're definitely going to hear about it from Byron's wife. All right. So, yeah, you're going to want the PC 2000. So, regarding his ADS L710 speakers, and these were older speakers, if I remember correctly.
30 years
like
old,
that.
yep.
And he was trying to figure out whether he was going to buy Polks or something. Is that right?
No, he was going to buy either SVS or Aperion, but
okay.
he was thinking he might get these repaired. So you were asking, how do you know they need repairs?
Okay. Well, that sounds like something I would say. One tweeter is not producing any sound. Well, that would be broken. So he found a repair person who is familiar with ADS speakers and who he suggested updating the crossover with new capacitors. Craig himself does not know if the crossover is actually having any problems. Regardless, the cost to repair the speakers would be quite a bit less than the $2,000 he's considering on spending on new front towers. Yeah, I mean, this guy's going to have to tell me something that makes me think that there's something wrong with the crossover. Like, is there rust? I mean,
Right, yeah.
what I mean?
True. I mean, capacitors do wear down in their ability to recharge and discharge, just like any cell does
He's
over
sitting
time. So I
awfully
assume he's
close
just
to
looking
stuff,
at the
though.
age and going, "Oh, you could probably use a replacement," but it doesn't mean you need them necessarily. But it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, I would just say, dude, just swap it. And if you're going to swap out one tweeter, you should try to swap them both out. That's basically what if any. I think they did the same thing. RBH did the same thing when somebody had a tweeter blow. They sent out two tweeters, so they could then they knew the two tweeters were both from the same batch and they would have the same, more similar sound. So if you're going to switch out one, try to switch them both out, and if you can, and from similar batches or the same batch if you can. So if you want to get it fixed, I mean, if you love these speakers for 30 years, who am I to tell you to get something new? The Infinity subwoofer that produces a lot of port chuffing that he was talking about that we said that he should get rid of, he's nixed it. It's gone. It's dead.
It's the end of that.
I would like to think that he put it on a little raft and set the entire thing on fire and floated it over some cliff someplace. So anyways, he really likes to look in the driver layout of the Aperion Veris 2 grand speakers. So he's going to take our advice and audition them along with the SVS Ultra series speakers. He didn't exactly love the SVS satellites right away. He thought they sounded tight in the bass at first, but after many hours of listening, he likes their sound now. Maybe the speakers need to break in, he thought. Or maybe he was the one that got used to them. And the reality is it's the latter. You got used to them, and it's a completely normal thing. And we all do this. When you get brand new speakers, especially if they have a different sound than what you're used to, the difference is going to make you think that it's bad. It's just different.
Right, because it's just different, yeah. That also makes me suspect that those older speakers, I mean, they might have been excellent in their day 30 years ago, makes me think maybe they got a little bit of flabby bass to them, if that's what you've been used to.
Yeah.
So, either the Aperions or the SVS, great to take advantage, both of them free two-way shipping, so why not audition them? Keep the ones you like, send back the ones you don't. You're not out an extra penny. So that's a great plan to do that. And I suspect everything will sound tighter, cleaner, better delineated. That's what I would expect from both.
Right. Oh, you're gonna, and this happens a lot too. People are like, well, you had these Sherwin Vega speakers that my dad gave me, and now I got these new speakers that cost a lot of money, but they don't have any bass. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's not really the case. They don't have a boosted bass and accentuate.
A bass that's hanging around far too long.
Right. He says if all of that makes sense and sounds good to us, he's going to proceed with getting the dual-ported SVS subs and auditioning both the SVS Ultra and Aperion Veris Grand speakers.
I approve of that.
I approve. Yes, we're good. Okay, but he still has more questions. These are these were the pre-question questions. So here we
Answers to our questions.
which actually pose more questions. So, okay. He doesn't have any acoustic treatments. Double curtains over his sliding glass door and a throw rug are the closest he's come to adding extra absorption. Any suggestions for him besides closing off his hallway with a door? I have to scroll back up to see these pictures because I can't see what Rob is showing all you people.
Yeah,
now, this
so, I mean,
room has a ton of stuff in it.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, you have limited places to put said room treatments if you wanted to do them.
I mean, the good news is, even though most of these surfaces in his room don't necessarily look absorptive, since you have a lot of stuff, you are scattering the sound.
Right. It's very diffuse.
You're not getting like hard, straight, flat, uninterrupted surfaces that are just giving you straight reflections. You're going to be diffusing the sound in your room. So that's good news.
That is good news.
The ceiling looks bare. If you wanted to, you could treat the ceiling, but that's always
does that.
a thing and a half to actually put stuff up on your ceiling. But I mean, that's available to you.
This is a real room. This is not a home theater.
Yeah.
This is a real room.
Yeah.
No one's putting stuff on their ceiling. There's like one little space back there. I have to scroll back up again. One little space to the right of what looks like a cabinet and a cardboard box. It has a piece of art on it right now, some sort of sculpture looking thing. There is also, next to the sliding glass door on either side, you could put something. If there is a corner that you could load up with some bass trapping, that would be okay too. But the other thing I'm going to suggest here too, is that an island or is it a counter? Does he have a seated counter? It's not, right? It's just an island.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like an island that looks like maybe it's extended into the rest of the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hard to tell, but yeah.
You might be able to put like some thin panels on that.
Like on the underside, the
on the other
lower,
side, yeah, the lower
portion.
Side.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, this room concerns me less than some other rooms because, like I say, at least the sound is being diffused in here. It's being scattered. So chances are you don't have horrible, strong first reflections that are going to be competing with the direct sound. What we're really trying to get is direct sound that is clearly louder than the reflected sound, and scattering the sound achieves that to a fair degree as well. So yeah, I wouldn't overly worry about it. Honestly, the thing that bothers me most in here is the floor being tile. That
you say a rug though.
Yeah, he's got a rug in the front, so at least that's something. Yeah, I mean, you kind of really only have space in the sort of the upper corners, like the upper edges.
Yeah,
that's really. I mean, you could. There are like Gick offers what they call soffit traps. Right. That make it look like you have a soffit, except it's just a bunch of absorption. So, your corners, your top edges, if you want to replace the art on the back there with, say, a printed panel,
by the front right speaker, you could put something to the side of that. I think it looks like a light switch or something over there, so that might be difficult. But I agree with Rob. I think that there's so much stuff in here, and that I don't see that it's going to be much.
This is a case where you might add some absorption and really not notice a big difference.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I have to scroll back down now. He says, from reading the specs and graphs, it appears as though sealed subwoofers can reach a bit lower than the ported versions. He's strongly leaning towards the PC2000 for their size and based on recommendations, but he just wants to be sure he isn't giving up an extension to do so. I don't know where you're reading that, but
it's when you're looking at the frequency response graphs, and it's a more gentle roll off at the bottom of a sealed sub, which is generally the case. But the key question here is at what output level?
Yeah.
Right. So what's happening is the PC2000 can play significantly louder than the sealed version. It's just that when it reaches its lower limit, then it drops off very steeply below that. So it gets down to around 18 hertz and then drops off very steeply. Whereas the SB2000 plays, down to around 35-ish hertz and then starts to roll off gently, but it can never get as loud in that range between 18 all the way up to 200 hertz as the PC2000 can. And that's what counts, all right? You can't hear below 20 hertz. You can't hear it. So as long as you can get down to 20 hertz and you're getting higher output from 20 hertz up to 200 hertz, that matters far more than having that more gentle roll-off, but at a much lower output level.
And generally speaking, ported subs, if you're going to make a rule about it, which I don't do, but if you were going to make a rule, ported subs will tend to play lower than sealed subs, all things being equal, especially if you're talking about the same amplifier size and everything else.
At a given output level.
At a given output level. So, you're not going to be giving up extension.
Nope.
So even with the little SB1000 he has right now, he has a pitcher that rattles. That's fun at first, but he needs suggestions to help stop the noise. Blue tack is a popular one. Any sort of putty sort of thing that you could put on stuff. I often buy rubber plumber's tape.
Yep.
It comes in the big roll. It's like in the box, and then it has a sticky side that has a coating, a backing on it. You peel the backing off, and what I do is I just cut. It lines, like there's like pieces of it lining all the door frames in this room, because my doors were rattling every time the subs were hitting. I can't remember what else it's lining in here, but I did have to do it to some light fixtures and behind some pictures in my Jackson Fellow house. So that's what I use. I like that one because it's just easy to apply.
Yep.
But the blue tack is perfectly fine too.
Yeah, there's also, they sometimes call it museum putty, but it's the same idea. You just need something kind of squishy and sticky, and that'll take care of that.
Yeah. So he knows that some of the SVS cylinder models use upward firing ports, while the PC2000 has a rear firing port. Do we have a preference for one design or the other? And does a rear firing port create any concerns regarding boundary interaction? Okay, so the older SVS cylinder subs have the upward firing ones with the grate on top, and the newer SVS cylinder subs have a wood top. Is it wood? I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and then a rear firing port. I prefer that one because I am constantly in terror that my children are going, or my wife is going to put a drink on top of my subwoofer and then spill it. Or a plant or whatever. And my brother lived in here forever. My autistic brother did when my parents were staying with us, and it was he put all sorts of stuff up there. So as far as I know, nothing has been damaged, but it terrifies me to have to open up that sub someday and go, well, look at that. There's, Cheez-Its here.
I mean, performance-wise, it really doesn't make a difference. If you're placing the sub so close to the wall that you're going to have, like, the port would be butted right up against the wall, rotate the sub.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden that rear-facing port is no longer rear-facing into the wall.
It's still round, so yeah.
Yeah, it's perfectly round, so you just rotate it. So yeah, performance-wise, there's really no difference to be concerned about.
No, I wouldn't worry about it. Let's move on. Jay. First up, Jay says he discovered us on YouTube and appreciates how we explain things. He lives in Canada, and SVS subwoofers are a lot more expensive with the current exchange rate, shipping, and taxes. But he bit the bullet because we talked about them so very much. Like, guys.
There'll be more coming, too.
Yeah, get used to it, buddy. This is the right podcast for it. Hey, if anybody out there, I'm dead honest with you. If anybody out there wants to build enough subs that are value for performance leaders like SVS has, I'll be happy to recommend them, because we do.
Well, we do. We recommend Power Sound Audio and HSU and Rhythmic, and
we do, and we recommend all these people. But we tend to recommend them for specific situations, like Power Sound Audio. I've got a McMansion, and I need to fill it with bass so that all the windows rattle. All right, Power Sound. That's your go-to right there. I need. Remember when the STF from HSU was like, I need a sub that's under $500.
There was like one choice. It's too bad that's gone. I missed that sub.
It is too bad that's gone. So we do recommend other ones, but we talk about SVS so much because unfortunately we have to. That's what we don't have any options.
They hit a lot of the middle area that a lot of people live in, so makes sense.
So for size and looks reasons, he with the SB2000, even though it's an open concept space, he was using a Wharfdale SV250 before. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'm guessing the 250 is a 250 watt amp.
Could be.
Probably in there. That's what I would guess. And it's probably an 8-inch woofer, maybe 10-inch. He wasn't satisfied with it, which is why he considered the SVS in the first place. But now that he's heard tight, smooth, even, and thunderous bass, even in his open space, produced by the SB2000, he calls his old Wharfdale his lazy dog. So it was expensive in Canada, but it was worth it to go with SVS. So there's a listener.
We have a believer.
We have a believer. We know what we're talking about. So anyways, these are the questions. He's putting together a dedicated theater in the basement. He wants 7.something.4 Atmos setup. That something is a 2 or a 4.
Well, it's coming up.
Anyways, and he's a Golden Ear fan, so he already has Triton 2 towers and a Super Center XXL, which I imagine is a very large speaker.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
I would guess. Anyways, this Triton towers have powered subwoofers built in. They can be used just as regular speakers, but also the option to send them an LFE signal with RCA connections. Since he doesn't have any subwoofers in the basement at the moment, he tried setting the front speakers to small and connecting the powered bass drivers in the Triton towers to his AV receiver subwoofer outputs, letting the AV receiver handle the bass management rather than just setting the fronts to large and subwoofer to none. He thinks it sounds better this way. Mm-hmm. The built-in powered bass drivers in the Triton towers play plenty loud enough they can rattle his house. So output isn't the issue at all, but he'd like the bass to play a bit deeper.
Okay.
So he's trying to figure out what he should do. He's fully on board with the multiple subwoofers approach, but could he potentially buy only one external subwoofer and have it work alongside the Triton tower built-in subs? Again, SVS subs are expensive in Canada, so could he have the benefits of dual subs over most of the frequency range by running the Triton, the power Tritons at the front of the room and then adding, say, a PB2000 at the back of the room? And then the PB2000 could fill in the lowest frequencies on its own. Could that work? I mean, technically, no. I mean, it works. It works.
Yeah, I mean, it'll function. Sure, it'll function.
It works in that the subs, the speakers at the front will make as much bass as they can. The sub at the back will do the same thing that they're doing until those things taper off, and then it's going to be by itself.
Right.
So,
and those Triton towers are going to be attempting to play lower, which brings in the possibility of them actually adding distortion in those lowest frequencies, as opposed to really helping out.
So my new thing, whenever somebody says I want to run my speakers full range because they've got subwoofers in them and blah 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 blah, is like, fine. If you want to do that, then see where your speakers are placed at the front of your room. Buy 2 subs and put them at the back of your room in the exact same spot,
right,
away from the wall. You know, basically mirrored.
Yeah. If
you do that, then you can do it. But the problem here is that you will now have 2 subs once the Tritons roll off. And let's just say, for sake of argument, they just roll off and they're silent. They don't add any distortion. Let's pretend that. Let's pretend that after they roll off, then the SVSs are playing by themselves. They are in a not great location at that point. They are, both on one side of the room, probably close to you, playing by themselves. I know that, and I just think you should run your speakers as full range, not full range, but
still set them as small.
As a speaker,
just run them
not
as a speaker,
not as a speaker and a subwoofer. As a speaker, when I said full range, that's what I meant. And then cross them over into your sub, and then save up for a second sub, and then do it that way. Yeah, I know you don't want to, and I know you're like, I spent the money on these things because they have. I understand. I do.
There's no way to make them extend deeper than they do. So, for that entire range below where they roll off, you are at 1 sub, and that's just the way it is.
And that's the best possible scenario is that they roll off and they're quiet. The worst is that they roll off, but they keep trying anyways.
Yeah.
They can't play it, and they distort, and then you're adding actual noise to your room.
To avoid that, so let's just say, look, he can only buy 1 sub right now. That's all he can afford, which we totally understand.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and you buy the 1 sub.
Yeah.
What you could do is you can think of this as 3 subwoofers. 2 of them happen to not be able to play quite as low as the last one. So you could use that multi-sub optimization software. You'd have to have a measurement mic. You'd have to have a mini DSP. But it will optimize it to the best of the abilities of the 3 subs that you have.
Right.
Will that mean perfectly uniform bass in the lowest parts where the Tritons can't reach? Not necessarily, because you're really dealing with only 1 sub there. But you should be able to get pretty good frequency response at your primary seat, which is likely the only one that you really care about. The other people who are listening in your theater probably don't care as much as you do. So, I mean, you can make the best of it.
Yeah, but you see, what you're describing is spending money on a mic, spending a lot of time doing all this calibration, just to be able to use the lower end, the last. Let's be generous and say they go down to 35. I don't know
Sure.
if they do. Let's say they go down to 35. So we would roll them off at 80 anyways. Let's pretend we would. Maybe you could roll them off even lower, but we'll roll them off at 80 anyways. So we're talking about 45 hertz, basically, right? Am I right?
It's just that you can get, like, let's just say you bought one sub, you took the Triton towers and you just set them to small with an 80 hertz crossover, and that's all you did to them.
Yeah.
And now you just have a straight up 7.1.4 setup, right? Like,
Yeah.
if that's what you did, you could, if you did the whole multi-sub optimization software with the mini DSP controlling the powered drivers in your Tritons as two other subs, you could improve upon that. You could, because I mean, a lot of the base is 35 hertz and up. That's the majority of the base.
My point here, though, is in the end, you're going to end up with one seat that's pretty good, and the rest of them are probably not going to be nearly as good. Like,
they're going to be better than just a lone sub all by itself.
Yeah, you see,
but not quite as good as just getting two subs.
Cross these speakers over at 80 hertz or whatever you decide to cross them over as. Run them as a speaker. Don't worry about the subwoofer part of it. Buy a subwoofer. Run it as a lone sub. Make your seat sound good. Mm-hmm. And then save up for a
save
sub.
Up for a second sub. I mean, I'm agreeing with the save up for a second sub regardless as well. I'm just saying if you wanted, but that's spending extra money on stuff that you might not end up needing once you have the two subs. So it's it's
not
a trade-off that way.
Yeah, you're almost certainly not going to need it. But if you're going to do it, make sure you buy the mic from
Cross Spectrum
Labs.
That's right.
Anyways, he's come across a couple of reviews that claim that there are slightly audible differences between the PB2000 and the PC2000. He says they are different designs, but is there truly no difference at all? Are these reviewers correct or making stuff up? I think they're making stuff up, not on purpose, but I would be surprised.
If anything's making a difference, it's the fact that the PC2000 comes with the isolation feat and the PB2000 doesn't.
That could be that I would believe. I would believe. There is, I mean, if we had on, SVS again on this podcast, which we have, 3 times now, 2 times, 3 times?
3.
They're going to tell you that they sound the same.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to say. These are the people that make it.
The
reviewers are going to tell you something different because they get paid to write down words, and the words, they sound the same, are not as exciting as I spent 30 hours listening.
Well, it's
and
like how
some slight differences.
So many reviewers will swear up and down that they can tell a difference between AV receiver brands, right?
We're going to get to that question in a little bit too. That's on my hit list of things I want to talk about.
That's just because if they don't say that, then there's going to be the weirdo readers who are like, well, if you can't tell a difference, you're not a very good reviewer. It's like, they're just an honest reviewer when they reveal that they can't tell a difference.
I got
you can't tell a difference.
Creamed because Death Cab for Cutie CD, SACD. It was like two-sided, right?
Yeah.
And I said they sounded exactly the same. Like, well, if you can't hear the difference between the two, what kind of reviewer are you? I'm like,
that's right.
I'm the kind of reviewer who realizes sometimes they just take the regular version and they upmix it to SACD, and it does absolutely no difference sonically. That's the kind of reviewer I am. But you knock yourself out there, Cole.
But the things that are real, so like I say, the main thing I would guess, the PC2000, it does come with the isolation feet, the squishy feet on the bottom. PB2000 doesn't. So it could be that, or it could be if they're just putting it as far into a corner as it can physically go, the box is way bigger.
Does it get quite as far into the corner?
The PC is fitting more snugly into the corner with the driver facing down, so it's physically closer to the boundary. So it could be a positioning thing within the room. That could make an audible difference, absolutely. But the subs themselves, when you see the semi-anechoic, the ground plane measurements, it's like they're essentially identical. So it's
Jay says he had to stop listening to AVRant for a while because listening to us resulted in him buying too much stuff. You and Byron have similar problems, apparently. It's all AVRant's fault that he ended up with Ascend Sierra Towers. That's actually your fault. Horizon Center, again, your fault. HTM 200 SE Surround, your fault. And dual HSU VTF3 Mark V subwoofers, your fault. And a Denon AVR X6200W and GIC acoustic bass traps. Those last two I will take at least partial credit for. The rest of it is all you, Haas. Anyways, so if you're looking to blame, and your wife is looking to blame somebody, just Rob at
Yep.
avrant.com.
I'll take the blame for that kind of thing because I bet it sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Anyways, he's back now because he wants Atmos. Apparently, his bank account has replenished. He's done some grinding at the job. The design committee, he does have a wife, has vetoed speakers on the ceiling, so he's strongly considering SVS Prime elevation speakers mounted high on the side and front walls. I'll be honest with you, I would talk to the design committee about in-ceiling speakers. So
I mean, you got in-ceiling lights. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
So in-ceiling speakers wouldn't be that big of a deal.
He's saying speakers on the ceiling. So he's not thinking of installing speakers. Maybe. Given the angle of the front of the room here, I'm guessing it's close. There maybe the roof is like right there.
It could be.
Installing speakers might be problematic, expensive, or impossible. So
could be
if that's the case, then I understand where you're coming from here. All right. So we've got some pictures here, and he's drawn out things that I can't read. Since hopefully you are showing pictures, you aren't showing me because I've been sitting on my foot for about 45 minutes now, and I can no longer feel it. All right. Let's look at these pictures here, and we can see it's a very nice room. I want to say that I want to scan. I use a barcode scanner on your drapes to see if it will show up as a price because they are very straight. Very white, low couch, love it. Those are the songs. Those aren't Ascends. Are those Ascend speakers right there?
The ones at the front?
Yeah.
Yep, those are the Sierras in the natural bamboo finish.
That's the natural bamboo threw me off. I did not realize that that's what they look like. All right. So he asks, will the Prime elevation speakers be a good sonic match for Ascend speakers? Are they a good choice for both height positions? They will sound just fine.
Yeah, I will say yes. For Atmos positions, I mean, okay, if you were hypercritical and you used them as your fronts and you were super A-B comparing them, would they sound identical? Probably not.
No.
But they're both very neutral speakers, and for the Atmos positions, they're more than good enough.
Yeah. I agree. I'm still scanning the pictures. So he's getting new seats, and he's going to position them a couple of feet closer to the screen. If he mounts elevation speakers more or less where his wall-mounted surround speakers are now, just a little higher, that will put them roughly 4 feet behind his new seated position. Should he call them top middles or top rears? I gotta look.
If they're 4 feet behind you, go ahead and call them top rears.
Yeah, isn't that what because they're out to the side. Yeah.
Yep.
Top rears.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is it's not going to make that much of a difference, and it's a settings change. It's not something that you can't possibly recover from if you want to try them both out.
It's not like once you save your changes, the receiver says, "Are you sure?" Because you never can change it again.
Right. Yeah. but if they're 4 feet behind you, they're no longer top middles. They're
definitely
top rears
not top
at that
middles.
point.
Yeah. So his front height speakers can be the same distance apart as the front left and right speakers, but the top rears will have to be on the side walls and farther apart. Is this a big deal?
No.
That's not optimal based on what they're saying, but who cares? I mean, it's what you got. So
yeah, and I mean they're up high, they're in front of you and behind you. Like you want them to be okay. Is it 100% exactly where you would put them? Maybe not, but it's not a big deal. It's absolutely nothing to be overly concerned about.
Yeah. So he wants to lower the current surround speakers and put them on stands instead of them being wall mounted. Do we have any suggestions for good speaker stands roughly 36 inches tall that will fit the Ascend HTM 200 SEs?
Now, before we even suggest stands, because I will.
Yeah.
But before we do that, he has this half-height wall.
I was just thinking the same thing. Why doesn't he just mount it to that?
Or just put the speakers on the half-height wall. Like, just sit them there.
I don't. Maybe she does. Maybe it is. Oh, I'm scrolling down. I'm looking at the wrong house now. Hold on. Let's scroll back up.
But
yeah,
I mean,
I looked at that same thing because if he's pulling these things out, you could sit them there. He maybe doesn't want to sit them there. I'm okay with that.
Sit them there. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying you could, and then you don't have to buy any side because it looks like it's already the perfect height.
Yeah.
So they could just sit there on some mouse pads.
Dude, we gotta start selling mouse pads. The AVRant mouse pads has got to be a thing. If I had more time in my day and fewer children in my life, I would make that happen. I would also make the Patreon thing happen, which I haven't done. Yeah, I could see that. If you really don't want to put them there, I mean, you could mount them. I think he wants to put them directly to the side of his couches. I think that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. So I mean, for speakers like this, I'm always just going to recommend Sanus.
Sanus is just solid, man. I love their stands. That's what I'm actually. A Sanus stand is holding this computer in front of me right now.
Yeah, they have their SF34s, which are 34 inches high, but that's fine. The plate on them is like the ideal size to hold the HTM 200s. It's almost the exact same dimensions. So Sanus SF34s would 100% get the job done. If you really need stands, if for some reason you can't just sit them on that half-height wall at the back.
I wish I would understand too. That's fine. All right, Brad. Brad and his wife recently moved into a new house. He's setting up their TV and 5.1 surround sound in their living room, which is 18 feet long, 13 feet wide, and 16 to 18 feet high, with permanent openings to the upstairs, downstairs, and dining room. Yeah. Okay. So we've got some pictures here, and he is definitely setting some stuff up. For sure.
Yeah, things are under construction and that, but we can see there's permanent openings, top and bottom. It's this big vaulted ceiling in this space. So yeah, as far as cubic feet are concerned, it's infinity cubic feet.
Infinity cube. It's big. It's not as big as
a window
Chris's
at the
house.
back of the room. He's going to have his seats in front of that window. That's the idea.
Okay, so what? Oh, I see it. His seat's going to be in front of that window?
Seats in front of that window facing the wall that currently has a loose door leaning against it. That's where the TV is going to be hanging.
I think there's more than one loose door that I see. Hold on. I definitely see two loose doors.
Well, there's sort of only a front and a back view when we're not looking upwards at the ceiling.
Okay.
So.
All right. I see the one you're talking about.
Yep.
All right. He's using ELAC speakers in the Denon AVR X4300H receiver with the seating roughly 15 feet from the TV. Where he feels he's lacking is in the subwoofer department. He was using an energy sub in their previous home, but it seems the time has come to upgrade. Well, or you could try to use the energy sub in this room and it will die, and then you could upgrade. His budget is 800 bones, and one subwoofer is the only allowable option. More than one has been vetoed, so what do we recommend? I recommend you get some more money to spend because it's a big room. That's unfortunate.
So, well, I wanted to mention on here. So, I mean, when we're talking about the subs that we tend to recommend for any size space, we're talking about pressurization. And I think it's important to explain that pressurization is a thing that most people haven't even experienced. Because if you're just thinking about, when the kick drum hits, I can feel it kick me in the chest. That's not pressurization.
Yeah.
Pressurization is when there's a really, really low, practically inaudible rumble that's going on, and it feels like the entire room is breathing for you, or your vision starts to blur, for real, or your teeth start to hum. All right,
you get nauseated. That's happened to me before, it's rumbled me so hard that I was like, "Okay, turn it down, turn it down."
So that's pressurization, and in a situation like this where your room is open to whole other sections of the house, if you were to pressurize the whole space,
you would have to buy a gallon of blue tack to go around and
but
just secure all your wine glasses.
It wouldn't be pleasant.
No.
Right? For anyone else in the house, they'd be like, don't ever play a movie while I'm here and I'm not watching it with you, because it's just unpleasant to be in here while this is going on. So this whole, pressurizing, I think if it's a dedicated theater, hey, we want the ability to do that. That's cool. Right. But when it's the whole open space, it's not even really a desirable goal at that point. It would just be unlivable. So what you're looking for is a sub that can still give you a nice kick drum, definitely still extend down low enough on its own that you're going to be hearing all the way down to 20 hertz like you want to. So at this price range, the PC 2000 that we just talked about from SVS, it absolutely will not even come close to pressurizing this space. But the very nice thing about it is that it's extremely well protected. So turn it up as loud as sounds good in your theater room, and it won't break itself. It won't bottom out. It won't distort badly. It'll just, if it needs to play, if the signal is asking it to play even louder than it can, it'll just politely refuse to do so. And that's a very nice thing about it. And if you say, like he's saying, aesthetics are concerned, you can only have the one sub. The cylinder sub is a great choice because you can lie it on its side. Sure. And that means you could have it right behind your couch and you'd never even see the thing.
Yeah.
It's lying on its side behind your couch. That means you'll get some great tactile sensation from it.
Whether you like it or not.
So that could work very nicely. The alternative I'd point you to would be HSU with their VTF3 Mark V HP for high power.
Yeah, you're gonna want to make a cardboard box of that though.
Yeah,
Before
that thing is a monster.
Yeah, it's
and
it's
even
a
though that one, the HSU can play louder than the PC 2000, it can. It's just output wise, it can play louder. It's still not going to come close to pressurizing this space. So, yeah, but whatever one physically works better, I would go for.
Yeah. Dave, this comes from Twitter. Dave noticed the announcement that Blade Runner is being re-released on Ultra HD Blu-ray with HDR. How can a movie that was shot on film nearly 40 years ago be in HDR? I mean, they can just process the heck out of it, can't they? I mean, can't they just shove it into a computer and then say, let's make it the highlights highlightier and the black.
Well, I suppose you could fake it like that, but the main thing is that actual film, when they film stuff on film, has greater dynamic range inherently than what things were mastered to for the final product. You can get 11 or 12 f-stops out of motion picture film, which is considerably more than the finished product had. So if you go back to the original negatives...
If they still have them.
But if you do and you rescan them, there genuinely is more dynamic range in the original negative photograph than what was used for the prints that we've been watching all this time. So that is one way to absolutely get 100% genuine HDR. It's not the full 15 or 16 f-stops that a modern digital camera can capture, but it's more than standard dynamic range. It's there for real in the film.
Yeah, but the reality is they're probably just going to take like the Blu-ray version they had and just process it. I absolutely believe that. Why would they do what Rob's saying? Because if they were doing what Rob said, they would be talking about the fact that they had gone back to the negatives to get the everything.
It might be though. I mean, that's a historic enough film that they might have gone to the.
Dude, do you know how much extra money that costs versus just having some tech in a lab off in the corner? Make it HDR. Well, how am I supposed to do that? Figure it out. We pay you $18 an hour. Don't spend more than 5 hours. So I don't. Yeah, and right there lies a lot of the problem.
It could be very worth it. Like all the neon that's in that movie. That could be worth remastering. I have
such a love-hate relationship with Blade Runner. I love that movie, but I hate watching it. It's so slow. It just drags. And the parts that are great, and they're so intense and so interesting. But then there's just... And then the voiceover. I wish they'd never done the voiceover.
Well, that's a choice. That was the theatrical version versus the director's cut.
I like the director's cut quite a bit, but I do love the movie. For those of you that are right now clawing at your computer screen saying I'm a heathen, I understand where you're coming from, but I've seen that movie so many times, and every time I'm just like, ugh, I love watching this movie, but is it going to end soon?
Well, if they can make it look anything close to Ghost in the Shell that I just watched at my parents' place over the weekend in HDR on an OLED TV, that's some spectacular imagery with those neon-looking cities. So
they have that red box right now. I want to rent that. I want to see it.
Yeah,
I want to see it.
I enjoyed it.
Okay. All right. Rob has lower standards than a lot of us do for movies.
It's true. I give movies a very fair shake.
You do. My brother's the same way. And I'm great with comedies. I laugh at everything. I laugh throughout the entire movie if it's a comedy. It has to be marginally funny for me to laugh. Afterwards, I'll say, oh, it wasn't that great. But you'll think that while I'm there, I'm having the best time of my life. It's just the way I am. So I understand where you're coming from. All right, let's get going. Ron. I got a big old picture here with an X in it, and I think the X is a ceiling fan.
That's right. It was a reminder. So
reminder.
Reminder diagram of his room. He's got a big old ceiling fan over top.
There's an OM, and there should be a T, and he's Xing me out. That's what I'm seeing here. I don't appreciate it, Ron. All right, Ron. Following our advice a couple of weeks ago, Ron wasted no time spending his $6,000 budget. This may be the first time I've ever thought about the fact that people are spending multiple thousands of dollars based on what we say. It's a little intimidating. That's a little intimidating.
Man, if I were buying the gear that we recommend, I'd be happy. So
I know. I would be thrilled. I would go live with Byron.
Yeah.
Anyways, he ordered the Aperion Intimus 5B bookshelf speakers and SVS Prime Elevation speakers to try them both out. So far, he's preferring the SVS, but that's due mostly to their smaller sizes and included mounts, and because he says the actual sound is very similar between the two. He ordered an SVS PC2000 and Marantz SR6011 and Epson 5040 UB projector. In getting all this new stuff set up, he has a few more questions. First of all,
there you go. I mean,
you got some
we
good
laid
gear.
out. We laid out the stuff that he could buy with a $6,000 budget, and he's like, "That sounds good." He bought pretty much all of it.
You know what we need to do? We need to set up like an Amazon store
Well, of course.
where we just send you the link. Like you press this, and then fills up your basket, and then we get some sort of cut.
That's what the affiliate program was. People have suggested that to you multiple times, but it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and I'd rather just give the advice and let you guys do it
I know,
yourselves.
right?
I know, it's like throwing money away. I understand, but there's a big part of me that believes that the minute this podcast starts making like real money, it's gonna just implode.
Makes real. When is this podcast ever gonna make real money?
Never. The way
Never.
we're going, like.
But the instant we make any money, people are going to be like, "Oh, you're only talking about that product because you make money off of it." So
exactly right.
have to avoid that.
Exactly right. And that's I'm like, I don't know how to avoid it. All right. About the elevation speakers, if he mounts them so they're angled down toward the seats, would that make them too directional for how surrounds are supposed to sound? No.
Nope.
There we go. I answered that one. Going on.
Yeah, so I mean, since he's talking about the surround speaker, so he had these two positions. He was thinking maybe he'd have surrounds and surround backs, but the surround backs weren't really where surround backs should be.
Right.
So the surround positions that he has are more or less directly to the left and right of his couch. So he's just like, if I go with the prime elevations, they have this angle built in.
Yeah.
He can't really angle them forward or backward.
No.
So he just put them on the wall, up a little high. They'd be angled down, aiming right at the ears. That's fine. That's
perfect.
Look at any of the surrounds in an actual movie theater. They are angled down at the audience.
That's what you want. They're
Same thing.
just going to be fine. That's exactly perfect. What speaker wire should he buy for 25 to 30 foot run, and what banana plugs should he get to go with it? Now remember, you're only putting the banana plugs on the receiver end. You're not putting them on the speaker end because you won't be able to fit them because you're mounting them to the wall.
Oh, right, yeah.
I do want to address. So don't. I did this. I don't overbuy banana plugs. I had a whole bunch left. He said he's preferring the SVS, but due mostly to their smaller size and included mounts.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that if you had actually said, I kind of like the way the Aperions sound better, but I like the form factor and the ease of use of these SVSs more, which one should I buy? I would probably say to buy the SVSs anyways. Because I think that people get too hung up on, well, this sounds just a little bit better, so I got to go get it. Even though it's way too big for my space and I'm going to have to reconfigure my entire home theater, I'm like, no, dude, what you got is good. This is good. This is just
and
a
you're
little
not going
bit
to
better.
be A/B comparing them on a daily
Right.
basis.
Once you put them in your room, you're going to love them. So I think that's great. 25 to 30 foot run. There's going to be a lot of people out there with a lot of advice about speaker wire. Cheapest wire you can find that's reasonable, but I would say something like 12 gauge just to be safe. I mean, you could go 10.
I mean, 14 gauge would be absolutely. 16 gauge would be fine. For
That's
30
what
feet.
I mean.
You're never going to hear it.
Never going to hear it.
You can talk about calculating how much resistance is in that length of wire at 16 gauge and going, oh, there's a possibility that at 47 kilohertz there might be a slight bit of attenuation. Like, you're never going to hear it. Never going to hear it. So, I mean, 16 gauge and, the number gets lower, but the gauge gets thicker. So 16, 14, 12 would all be absolutely fine.
Now, Rob and I are going to disagree on the banana plugs.
Right.
I like the banana plugs where you manually screw them down and it spreads out the tip so that it locks in place to the point where you could like swing your receiver around on the end of your speaker wire. If the banana plug is not letting go. Don't do what I just said. That would be a fairly poor life decision.
But you can get some of those at Amazon from a company called GLS.
Yes.
They're locking banana plugs. It's $35 for, 14 pairs?
Something like that. Yeah.
Really not a ton of money for that.
No.
I like Sewell for the simple reason that Sewell has a banana plug called the Strike banana plug, which is super quick to install. So that's what I like about those. Easier to install, but it's just a spring banana plug. It's just a compression fit that goes in there, so it's not as secure as the locking banana plug, but a little bit cheaper and faster to install. Whatever floats your boat, I'd be happy with either. For the speaker wire, I think since these are going to be mounted on the wall, there's a chance he might be running the wire inside the wall.
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Either way, I really like just getting Belden speaker wire. You can get it from Parts Express.
Yep.
It's not very expensive. They have in-wall. They have stuff that you can bury underground outside if you want that. Plenum rated stuff that you can put through an air return and meets all the fire safety codes. They got every kind that you want at Parts Express from Belden. White jacket, black jacket, whatever you want.
One thing that I often find with Plenum rated speaker wire in particular is it tends not to be too supple.
Right.
Which, if you're trying to shove something through a wall, makes it easier to work with. But if you're just going to be, if you're only
running it around the perimeter of your room,
something like that, it tends to be a kind of a pain to work with. Mm-hmm. So it's just a little stiffer. So know what you're going to do with it, and make sure make sure that you're getting what you want, because you can get like 14, 16 gauge wire, like 1,000 feet of it for like $100, or
well, not quite that cheap, but you can get it for under $1 a foot. So
yeah. So any of those would work, yeah. But I, to be honest with you, dude, you know what I do when I need speaker wire to just do in here? I go and buy the cheapest crap I can find at Home Depot.
Yep,
that's what I do.
Buy lamp cord, absolutely will work.
I just can't be bothered to go through all this hassle. So the HDMI run for the new projector will be about 30 feet. 30 feet for in this HDMI. That's a long way. What cable should he buy? The Red Mirror? Is that the one we're going to go with? Red Mirror?
Yeah, Red Mirror from Monoprice. Again, if this is going to be installed above the ceiling, which I think it might, then you got to make sure that it's rated, right? So
he's already got. Am I thinking about a different dude? Oh yeah, I'm 2 dudes ago. Keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, they got one. Their Cabernet Ultra active high-speed HDMI cable. The 30-foot length is $30. It's really not bad.
But cheap. I spent so much more for mine. I know. I'm so bitter that we could get stuff like this now. I'm like, my HDMI cable is probably 15 feet. It probably costs 3 times that.
But it's CL2 in-wall rated, full 18 gigabits per second bandwidth. So checks all the boxes, and the price is certainly not offensive. So yeah.
Wait, what was I doing? Oh, yeah. Can we suggest a ceiling mount for his Epson 5040 UB projector? I cannot.
Now, one thing was he said this ceiling fan that he has, so he's got this high ceiling, this 10-foot ceiling.
Oh, right. He's got to go low underneath
and the ceiling fan is hanging down 29 inches from that ceiling, he said.
Right. So he needs a pole.
So he needs something that can extend down at least 30 inches, I would say. Maybe a little bit more. So Visual Apex, which is a great place to buy projectors from, they sell a mount that they have commissioned themselves, so it's their branding. It's a Visual Apex mount. It's $59, so that's not too bad. Universal mount can hold, how much does it say? 40 pounds, I think. The 5040 UB is only 25 pounds. Okay. So totally fine there. But it comes with a 32, or it's adjustable, it extends, but up to 32-inch extension from the ceiling.
Nice.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Great price. Will fit your projector, hold it very securely, and has the extension tube that you need. So Visual Apex, they're self-branded, all-in-one universal ceiling mount for $59.
There you go. As he said before, his room is not light controlled, but he and his wife have decided to try and improve that, to give them more options for screen choices. Have you tried putting tint on your windows? Apparently that's a thing. I don't know. I think it's weird. Don't do that. Now, they're now leaning toward a white screen rather than gray. He ordered the projector first to test it out. His walls are taupe. Though, so he'll probably use a white sheet for the test. Is there anything else you can do to help him decide which color screen to get? Yes, you should get white. Just get white. Just get white. Don't
worry about it too much.
Don't worry about it too much. Get the white.
Really all you need to do is don't turn the projector on. Turn off all the lights in your... Have the room the way it's gonna be while you're watching something.
Yeah.
Now, look at your wall, even though the wall is taupe, doesn't really matter that much. Just look at the wall. How black is it? Because that's as black as ever going to be.
Right.
Now, your perception when there's something bright there...
Next to it.
will make you believe that it's even blacker, but that is as black will be. Now, if that is really not even anything close to a dark gray, going for a gray screen isn't the worst idea in the world still. But if it's reasonably dark, if you go, this is the way I'm going to watch, the projector's not even on, I'm just looking at my wall, and that's pretty darn dark, then white screen is fine.
Yeah, I got these people. I mean, I think there's quite a few people that have contacted this podcast, talking to us about gray screens and light rejecting screens and stuff, that if you turn the lights off in the room that they're using at the time that they would be using it, they would trip and fall over things. I absolutely believe that. And they're like, well, there could be a car that goes by and the light's going to come in the window. I'm like, all right, then, that might happen. And boy, will it take you out of the movie experience. I mean, you were already watching Batman v Superman, and then we were already hating it. So, just go with white. Unless, like Rob said, it's just really not dark in there.
Yeah.
So taking our advice and simply casting the projector's image onto the wall to figure out what screen size and placement they'd like best, he's come to the conclusion that they would enjoy a larger image than originally anticipated. They're now thinking a fixed frame screen around 165 inches would be really nice. That would be really nice. And he's looked at Elite screens and Silver Ticket. Are there any others he should be considering?
So I definitely want to address it, because originally they were still going to keep a flat panel on the front wall, and then he asked if he could have a screen that's extended, like mounted to the wall but extended out. So we suggested the L brackets, so that the screen could come down in front.
Oh, right.
And he was saying, so from his seat to the TV is about 11 feet. And then we're thinking, well, that's going to end up being about 10 feet with the screen being in front of the flat panel.
Right.
So I was at the time suggesting like a 120-inch screen, because that from 10 feet away is still a big viewing area. And he was like, oh, maybe 135. So now they're thinking, take down the flat panel, have the screen just a fixed frame screen that's on the wall. It's going to be their only display. So that means they're back to probably a little bit more than an 11-foot viewing distance now.
Right.
And he's like, okay, so we just projected up onto the wall, and 165 inches is about where they landed. I can't feel good about wholeheartedly recommending a 165-inch screen with the 5040 UB.
Oh, because of how much light output.
Yeah, you're gonna have to use the high lamp output mode.
Right.
If you were in a Batcave theater, it can do it. That's not the concern. It's just you're definitely not Batcave scenario, and you're gonna have to use the high lamp mode. And like 135 and the 5040 UB go together like peas and carrots. All right, so 135-inch screen is really, really nice for the 5040 UB for its light output capabilities. 150 is doable, but 165...
He already bought the projector, right?
Yeah, he's already bought the projector.
Okay.
You're really starting to push it. So there's a couple of easy things. I'm like, 165 from a little over 11 feet away. I'm like, that is a big field of view.
Right.
So I wonder if just the awe of seeing this huge image at first seems really cool and impressive, but if you actually lived with it for any length of time, you might start going, I am finding myself tired after watching because I have to actually turn my head to take in the sides of the screen.
The thing that bothers me, and the thing I think people think that my screen is too big. I'm sitting about, I don't know how far away from a 92 inch, right? But not about 85 to 90% of the screen I can easily see without me having to adjust my focus or turn my eyes in any way, shape, or form. If something pops in the very top left or right corner of the screen, I might have to look at it versus everything else. I mean, I'll still see it. I can still see it, but I'm not. It's not like.
But it'd be peripheral.
It's more of a peripheral thing. How much of this 165-inch screen is peripheral for you? Because that is going to get old real quick.
Sometimes when this happens, right? When you're first looking at it's so cool. It fills my whole field of view.
Yeah.
But when you actually go to watch a movie like that, it's frustrating. It's annoying.
Yeah, you're
it's too much.
Right. You suddenly realize that they tend to block or frame the shots. Block because I theater, but not acting. But not cinema. They tend to frame the shot so that one person is on one side of the screen, another person on the other side of the screen when they're going back and forth and talking.
Yeah.
And you're like going like this, like you're a tennis match watching this movie. It's gonna drive you nuts. So
I would urge you to maybe reevaluate, because you got the projector, so you can go ahead, throw the image, and maybe reevaluate. But really, I can't feel good about recommending anything larger than 150 inches to go along with the 5040 UB. If you can get down to 135 and be satisfied, I'm like, that's the butter zone for that projector. So I'm just putting it out there because I want to give the advice that I would want to receive. So
I mean, he might be able to return the projector if he really wants 165. What projector should he get?
I mean, he'd end up having to keep the price at the same price or lower. You'd have to end up giving up all the wide color gamut and 4K compatibility, because you'd go to like the 3700 or something like Canon,
right?
That would do it, but then it's
sure.
just straight 1080p.
1080p, right?
There's nothing extra about it. So
it's a little loud. But it's right next to a ceiling fan anyway, so maybe it's going to be loud anyway.
It'd be unfortunate. I'm saying reevaluate, because I think you might discover 165 is actually larger than you'd genuinely like to live with for every. It's going to be your only display, so you got to be really happy with it.
Yeah. Oh, and you can't get motion sickness if your display is too big. Clint sits too close to a very large display, and when we used to play Gears of War and Left 4 Dead and stuff like that, I would call him and say, "Dude, you want to play?" He'd say, "Yeah, hold on, I'm going to go take some Dramamine."
Yeah.
He took Dramamine every time he played Xbox with me.
Between Elite Screens and Silver Ticket, I don't think you have to look further. I mean, you're not going to find something in the same price range that's any better than the offerings from those two. So,
if you were looking for a very specific type of screen or or masking or something like that, I might point you towards Seymour AV, something like that.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You're just looking for a fixed frame screen. This is the way to go. Fixed frame, and these two companies, they're just so inexpensive and good quality. It's hard to go anywhere else. So he says many of the screens, Silver Tickets in particular, are currently listed as out of stock. Is that just because of the time of year with Cydia coming up? Are new products about to be launched? If so, is there an optimal time of year that you should wait so that you can get a great close-out deal on a screen?
Silver Ticket just has all their stuff manufactured in China, so they get them in boat containers, and when that container is empty, they got to wait for the next container, and they're just in between containers at the moment.
We don't actually know that, but that's what we think, because we know a lot of manufacturers that mysteriously have lots of stuff, and then they run out, and 2 months later, suddenly they have lots of stuff again. It's not like they build a backlog. If they could build them on demand, they would. But what happens is nobody gets nothing for 3 months, and then all of a sudden everybody gets everything.
Yeah,
that probably showed up off a ship from China. So that's why that they're out of stock, and they will be back again.
Screens aren't changing a ton from year to year on a Cydia type thing. It's not like projectors, which
especially not Cydia. I mean, Cydia is it's an installer show, so the screens they're going to be showing off are light rejecting screens and the stuff that you can put inside of a showroom to do stuff.
And the $20,000 4-way masking screens and stuff like that.
Stuff that you're going to be selling to really high end, and high end installers are going to be selling to.
Not Silver Ticket. That's not
Silver Ticket's not waiting for Cydia to roll out their brand new screen technology. That's not what's happening. So would the light output be different if you place the projector as close to the screen as possible and uses the lens's widest setting versus placing the projector farther back and using the telephoto end of the lens zoom range?
Yes.
I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. So you don't want to get. I mean, that's kind of what Rob's talking about already, right? You're trying to make a very big picture with this thing, and it's only got so much light output. And if it's 165 inches, your light output's just not going to be enough to give you everything that you want. You can help offset that by putting it closer, but then you're going to limit the amount of screen size that you can do. And like Rob's about to tell you, the closer you get, the less light you have to have in order to get the same amount of output.
Yeah, with these projectors that have zoom lenses, definitely some of the light is the light output is reduced. The farther back you put the projector, the more you go to the telephoto end of the lens. It does reduce the light output, sometimes as much as 40% from the most to the least, which is a huge amount when you think about it. These days, most of the time, even with these long 2-to-1 zoom lenses like the Epson has, it's about a quarter. So you lose about a quarter of the light if you put it as far back. So screen size stays the same, but you have the projector as close as it can be to create given screen size, and then as far as it can be to create given screen size. At the farthest end, it'll be about 25% less bright than at its closest. So yeah, it's considerable.
So he also picked up a Samsung Ultra HD Blu-ray player, the K8500. If he is playing a 1080p disc, though, should he have the player do the 4K upscaling, or should his projector handle that? And what settings would you have to change to make either of those things happen? Now, I'll address it from a more overall standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you looked at the manual. I did not have a chance to look at the manual.
I did.
So, what you generally want to do is have your up conversion done at the place where it's done the best. Okay? Whatever scaling that you're going to do, you should have it be done by the thing that has the best scalers. So where would that be? Well, you're going to have to kind of do a little bit of research, generally speaking. You're going to look at reviews of the source, reviews of your receiver, if it has upscaling capability, which almost all the time, that's not going to be a good idea. And then reviews of the display, whatever your display might be, to see what scaler it has. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, your source, if it's a Blu-ray player or something like that, would be the place to do that. Now, if you decide that you want to do it someplace else, you have it put out. You just have to do some sort of setting on the inside. Look for like native or scaling none or something, that you can select to make it put out just whatever's on the disc comes out, and then you set wherever that other thing is to do the scaling for you. And if that's between your display and not, if it's before your display, then what your display should get is what its native resolution is. In this case, it would be 4K for you.
Yeah, in the case of this particular player, though, you have the option of just setting it at 1080p, which means even Ultra HD Blu-rays would get downscaled to 1080p. So clearly you wouldn't want to leave it there all the time, but that would force it to output 1080p when you're playing a regular Blu-ray, which would then force your 5040UB to do its upscaling, which is wobble K, so it's taking 1080p and then wobbling the panel. So that's what it's doing. You can also force it to just output 2160p at all times, which means the player will always be upscaling any disc that it's playing. But honestly, the setting you want to use with this combination of this Samsung Ultra HD Blu-ray player and the 5040UB is auto. You want to use auto because the 5040UB, while it can accept a 4K resolution signal, it can accept 4K at 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second, but not at 60 frames per second.
Yeah, so you have to basically tell the player to talk to the projector and say, "What do you want from me?" And it's like, "Give me the good stuff. Give me the 30p because I can't take the 60."
Don't give me 60 is the thing. So if you set it to 2160p as the output, that could create a problem.
Right.
It might not, but it might. So honestly, you just want to leave the Samsung Ultra HD Blu-ray player at auto for the resolution output. It'll look fine. Honestly, the video scaling between the two of them is comparable. It'd be really hard to tell them apart.
I mean, even it's 5 years ago when I was doing display reviews, or it may even be longer than that, it was getting to the point where it was pointless to go through all the scaling tests, the HQV tests, and all the stuff that we used to do. It was just like everything did everything except for the weird cadence stuff.
Yeah, super weird stuff. But yeah, I mean, in this case, you just want to make sure the signal is always going to be compatible between the two devices. So just leave the Samsung at auto. That is really the best setting.
Yeah. Chris has his speakers wired with 12-gauge wire, but it's not speaker wire, so the individual strands are thicker than common speaker wire. He found that bare wire connections would come loose and even wound up stripping some of the threads on the plastic binding post nuts that screw down onto the speaker wire, so he's using wire terminations with crimp connectors. Not exactly. Was it crimp connector? Is that the little like alligator clip? Is that what I'm...
it's when you put like the banana plug onto the bare speaker wire and then you use a tool to crimp it down.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a friction hold. Yeah.
A few months ago, he was hearing some issues in the lower frequencies in his speaker, so he ran some sweeps, found things were worse than he thought, and tracked it down to some loose speaker wire. He fixed it, and things were fine until last week when his mains and centers started cutting out. Again, he found a loose wire, and again, he fixed it. Now he's hearing some crackling sounds in certain frequencies. Is it possible that his speakers were damaged by the loose wire problems? Also, should he rewire with real speaker wire and banana plugs, since he seems to have serial loose wire problems? That crackle is almost certainly a speaker wire connection.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what that is.
I noticed there's a lot of podcasts where I hear the microphone crackling on the podcast, and that's always a loose microphone wire. That's what it is, and it's that telltale crackling, staticky, weird sound. Loose wire.
Yeah. So, what should he rewire with real? I think you can either do that or continue to do what you're doing. So, it's up to you.
I mean, it sounds like because the one reason I don't particularly like crimp connections is that there is a lot of heat in a speaker wire, so it's expanding, contracting, and it comes loose. It sounds like maybe this is quite thick, stiff wire.
Yeah.
I wonder if over time you maybe even developed a kink in it at some point. I mean, anywhere in the length might have become kinked. It wouldn't be speaker wire does not have to be expensive. So it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to maybe just run some fresh speaker wire, get some of the banana plugs that we recommended earlier, either the GLS locking ones or the Sewell Strike ones, ones that aren't crimp connectors in either case.
Right.
Wouldn't be the worst idea, because it sounds like you're having issues with this particular wire repeatedly.
Right.
So given the relatively low cost, it's...
I definitely would. This is kind of issue that would just drive you bonkers. And if it's happened this often, it just means that, I mean, it could be that this is a summer thing too. I mean, if he's having all these issues right now, it's hot. But it's usually the heat of just using it. I mean, it's expand, contract, and eventually it comes loose. Yeah. Infinite Gary. Gary read about an upcoming feature being added to Oppo's Ultra HD Blu-ray players in their next beta firmware update. Apparently, they're going to allow the reduce image button to function such that if you have a 2.35:1 screen and you've zoomed in your projector to fill up the width, with the black bars being projected above and below the physical screen as a result, pressing the reduce image button will shrink 16:9 content so that it has the same height as a 2.35:1 image, but it has black bars. But it now. But it now has black bars on all four sides. But the black bars on the top will be projected off the screen. Black bars to the side will be projected on the screen.
That's right, yeah.
This would mean you can set your projector's lens setting once and leave them alone. However, it also means that 16:9 content will now be downscaled. What do we think of the solution for people with 2.35:1 screens? I'll be honest with you, I think it's the solution I would use if I wanted to do the thing that Rob's always talking about. I mean, but that being said, we'll see if anybody ever uses it. I don't know.
I mean, it's intriguing because the alternative, if you're not using, well, even if you are using an anamorphic lens, if your screen itself is 2.35:1,
right,
it means that if, let's say, you have a projector where it's got a motorized zoom and you have the memory settings, so when you're watching 2.35:1, you zoom it in, it fills the whole width of your screen, and then when you're watching 16:9, you zoom it out so that the 16:9 height now fits within your physically 2.35:1 screen, but then there's literal blankness on the left and right, not black, but just blank, right? Which normally people would want some masking or curtains or something to close off that part of the screen instead of just having it blank. This is actually sending out black bars.
Bars, right.
Right? So it is actually filling your whole screen at all times. It's just when it's 16:9, it's filling the sides with... Now, how different is that really? I mean, it's projected black bars versus nothing projected into that part of the screen at all.
And I mean, your pixel density is not as high either.
And it is lower resolution. The 16:9 image is lower resolution. It's been shrunk down so that there's now black borders all the way around that 16:9 image. Yeah, it's a bit of a toss up. It's a bit of a toss up.
The convenience can't. There's definitely something to be said for that. That's sort of why I think it maybe has some merit.
Yep.
If you want to do this, but you don't, if you want a 2.35:1 screen, but you don't have the money to get a projector with lens memories and all that
Right.
stuff,
Oh, then it's huge.
then it makes it feasible to do that on a regular basis rather than having to. Think about it. Even like the Batman part, Dark Knight, where suddenly goes into THX mode. You're like, press the button, and then suddenly it fits on
Into
the screen.
IMAX mode, yeah.
Yeah, and then IMAX mode. That's
Well,
right.
that'd be awfully hard in that because there's some pretty quick cuts.
Yeah, it's true. But it's I don't know.
I would, you know what? If I had that Opal Blu-ray player, I would give it a try.
I would too.
No question. I would give it a try. Because it might be pretty pleasing to be able to do that. Yeah. I'm not against it. I'm not against it.
Ryan has a 5.1 speaker set up in his living room, which is open to the dining room and the kitchen behind it. He's interested in adding 4 Atmos speakers to bring him to 5.1.4. Dolby recommends in-ceiling speakers to be at 45-degree angles from the listening positions for the front tops and top rears. With his current setup, that would roughly place his rear heights behind his surrounds by about 6 inches. Will this be a problem since Dolby's guides wants the rear surrounds to be behind the Atmos speakers? He sits 11 feet from his 88-inch projection screen, and he could move the couch forward a little, but he really can't move the speaker locations because of windows and wall cabinets and all that. Wall cabinets in the room. So what should he do? Dude, what is he talking about?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding here.
No, he is okay. So you do not have surround backs; you have surrounds.
That's right. He's got a 5.1 setup.
So your rear height speakers or whatever, your top rears, should be further behind you than your surrounds are. Your surrounds should be next to you.
Yeah.
Next to you. And your rear heights or rear surrounds, top rears should be behind you and behind the surrounds. So I'm not seeing the problem here.
No, there really isn't. Like I said, I think it's a bit of a misunderstanding. So the problem is so many people call the surround speakers their back speakers.
Right.
Or their rear speakers, right?
But
because, they're farther back than your front speakers. That is true.
That is also true, yes.
But they are not back speakers. They are not rear speakers. They are surround speakers. They're meant to more or less go to your sides. So,
Should
not
call
only
side
that.
speakers.
Yeah, not only that, the sounds that are sent to the top rears and the top fronts are completely independent of the sounds that are sent to your surround speakers, your surround back speakers, if you had them, your front speakers. They're all completely independent of one another. So what matters is following Dolby's speaker placement guidelines. When you have 5 listener-level speakers, you want them placed where Dolby says to place them. The surrounds will be placed either straight to your sides or just a little bit behind you, which is more or less what he has now. That's fine. And the top fronts and top rears will be placed in their recommended positions. That they say ideally it would be an elevation angle of 45 degrees in front of you and 45 degrees behind you. So yeah, there's really no problem here.
Right.
You're good to go, Ryan.
Just throw them up there. AVRant seal of approval. Luke recently completed his home theater setup. So this is Luke. I forgot to mention that. I'm getting tired, so I'm starting to make mistakes. I apologize. If you have not yet gone to our YouTube channel, this might be a good time to do so because Luke has got a gorgeous home theater.
Yup.
Even though it's very black, which I don't approve of, but it is.
I like it.
I know you do, but I think it's weird.
I think black on the walls looks just fine.
Yeah, you're weird. All right. Luke completed his home theater setup. It looks fantastic. He's having some subwoofer woes, though. He went with 2 Klipsch 12-inch down-firing 300-watt subs. He has them positioned to the left and right of his 135-inch projection screen, so they're both on the front wall. The room is roughly 20 feet long, 14 feet wide, 8 feet high, but it's not a perfect rectangle. It is possible he could move one of the subs to somewhere along the back wall, but he prefer to leave them where they are if possible. His AV receiver is a Yamaha RX-A2050 with YPOW RSC, which is reflected sound control. Is that right?
That's it. That's the one.
With all of the variables, placement knobs, and YPOW settings, he's having some trouble getting the subs perfectly dialed in. Could we tell him the best way to adjust things for optimal performance? Yes. You could put them in a different place. They are at the front of the room, which is not optimal. I know they look nice and sexy up there, but that's not where they belong. You should put one, I think in this room, if you can, you should put one That's really kind of hard to see.
In the front right corner and the rear left corner, perhaps?
I'm trying to see if there's a... Yeah, that's what that seems to me. But I think it might be next to that red thingy if we do that in one
So
case.
one of the issues is that it isn't a perfect
It's a little
rectangle.
L. It's a little L.
Yeah. It does have this section that bumps out where he's got a very nice little concession stand area with a popcorn maker. That's very cool.
It is.
I
very
like that
cool.
a lot. But yeah, it isn't a perfect rectangle. So the straight, put one on your front wall, one in your back wall isn't necessarily going to result in,
you know what? You could-
ideal.
You
right
could
away.
put one in the front of your room, like a little bit, right next to your center channel, and then put
Okay.
one in the back of your room behind you, like a
Uh-huh.
little bit to the other side of where the center channel would be, and I think that would be fine. But he doesn't want to do that. Okay,
Right.
That's not what's going to happen. The solution to this problem that will be as easy as what is basically just moving a speaker around, a couple of speakers around, and your bass will get better because of it. You don't want to do, and that's fine. I'm not going to try to tell you that
Sure.
you're a bad person. This is what you want. This is what we're going to do. So what are you going to do? You are going to do the thing that we always talk about whenever, and this is the thing we're doing the video tutorial about with SVS subs, except you don't have an oddly shaped or a extra large room. You just don't want to move your subs, which is, again, fine. So you're going to have to take one sub, the one that's closest to you. I guess it doesn't matter in this case. You're going to pick one sub because they're both the same distance from you. One sub, and you're going to run the calibration, do all the calibration, and you're going to leave that one alone. And then you're going to take the second sub, and you're going to adjust the phase knob on it if it's got one.
Little by little.
Until the sweeps that you're playing start to sound more uniform from seat to seat.
Yeah, so what you have to do is you're playing this, you're playing a bass sweep on repeat. You've left one of your subs with its phase knob at 0 degrees. Just leave it there. And the other one, you're adjusting. Ideally, you just adjust it 3 degrees at a time if you really want to do the painstaking version. But you're adjusting it little by little, and every time you adjust it, you listen in every single one of your theater seats that you care about until you find a setting on that phase knob where the bass sweep sounds the same in each of your seats. It's not necessarily going to be linear.
No.
There still could be some humps and dips,
Yes.
but it's the same humps and dips in every single one of your seats. Now, I'm going to suggest doing something before going into all of that, just in case he hasn't done it, which is one of the things I really don't like about Yamaha's dual subwoofer solution is they give you the option of setting it as a left and right sub or a
Right.
front and back sub.
I'm wondering if that's what he's done, since he's got them next to his front left and right
Possibly,
speakers.
yeah. Now, maybe he didn't. But if you did, if you set your subs, if you said, I got 2 subs, and they're on the left and the right, so I set them as left and right subs, which makes complete sense. Of course it does. That's very logical. But it's not a good thing to do. You actually want a mono signal going to the 2 subs. You want them playing the exact same thing at the exact same time. You do not want left and right separated. You do not want front and back. Even if you did reposition them as front and back, like we said you could, you still don't want to set them as front and back in the Yamaha. You still want to set them as a mono sub. So try that first, because that might solve your issue before you do anything complicated. And
That's
a
true.
pretty simple thing to try. Now, if it doesn't, then you have to start playing with the phase knob.
And I just want to say, for those of you that think that I'm a history revisionist, you can find the podcast where Rob and I discussed this exact thing when I was doing the review of one of the Avantage receivers, and I had it set at left, right, or front back. It was front back, so I had the 2 subs.
Well, because if that's what you have, you're like, oh, hey, they've got a setting that matches my exact setup.
And Rob was trying to explain it to me, and I was like, nah, man, they're in the front and the back. It's fine. It's fine. And then I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, Rob's right, and I'm wrong, and I'll fix it. So we're in the same boat, dude. If you did it, do not feel shame. We're in the same boat.
That is the last thing I would ever complain somebody try, because I'm like, it is literally describing the setup you have. Why wouldn't you choose that? So, ugh. this
So
stuff.
at some point, he'd like to upgrade his subwoofers, given his setup and room size, what we'd recommend. He's looked at SVS and Power Sound Audio, but he's particularly interested in DIY in the advice. Yes, my first advice is, if you're going to keep those subs where they are, make yourself 2 more and put them on the other side of the room behind you in the exact same locations across from them. And then you don't have to, we're back to being okay with you putting your subs this way. There are a lot of kits like the Dayton Audios and stuff like that that are out there.
Sure.
I'm not particularly knowledgeable about them, mostly because I love working with wood. I love working with my hands. I love doing that stuff. I am not good at it and not patient enough or motivated enough to get good at it yet. I feel like I am going to retire someday, or more likely have my children move out. And when they do, I will maybe get that as a hobby, because I think I would really like it. But as of right now, my DIY skills are limited to asking my dad to do as much stuff as possible.
Yeah, so I mean, you definitely can save some money here. Now, the cabinet isn't going to be finished. No. It's going to come flat pack. Assembling the cabinet, really not difficult.
But if you got 2
cabinet
of them and you put them behind your chairs, no one's going to see them anyways.
Or you just, you spray them with the bed liner and they look absolutely fine. Just black textured.
Define fine. I mean, it's bed
well, they look black.
They
I mean, all his walls are black.
That is
all
true.
His walls are black. So they're gonna blend right in. They don't need to be fancy looking.
Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but bed liner is very accurate to whatever that texture is that you get on a lot of speakers.
Oh yeah,
just like
basically what it is. So the finishing, it doesn't have to be. I wouldn't leave it as bare MDF. That would look weird.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be complicated finish. So my main suggestion, especially if this is like kind of the first time you're building a DIY subwoofer, not that I've done it myself, but just going by the education I've had from other sources and that, stick with a sealed design.
Okay.
Because trying to do a DIY ported design is far more complicated. It'll function, of course, but getting the tuning all correct for the right driver, the right amp, in the right enclosure with the right amount of stuffing and the right port tube length and all that stuff, it's a lot to deal with, whereas a sealed one is pretty straightforward.
Right.
You get the correct cubic footage for the driver that you're buying, and most of the drivers will tell you what kind of cubic footage works best with a sealed enclosure, and it's pretty darn straightforward. So DIY Sound Group, Dayton drivers over at Parts Express. Now, a great one for your size room, because you're only dealing with 2,200 cubic feet.
Yeah,
so this is a medium-sized room. A sealed sub will sound great in here. Output isn't really your concern. So one of the 12-inch Dayton drivers, they have their reference series or their Ultimax series. Choose whichever one, doesn't really matter. But DIY Sound Group has a flat pack kit, some 3/4-inch thick MDF panels all ready to go. All the dado joints are already drilled out for you and everything. Just got to glue it together. A 2 cubic foot internal sealed box. It's pretty dead simple. You can choose to put a plate amplifier on the back. They suggest a 500 watt plate amplifier. Dayton has those. You can get that from Parts Express as well. So you would require you to cut out the hole for the plate amplifier on the back of the thing. If you want, you can just put some binding posts on the back and have an external amplifier.
Sure.
You can get a Behringer iNuke, something like that.
Yeah.
You could get a 1,000 watt Behringer iNuke and power both of them from a 2-channel 1,000 watt Behringer iNuke. So it can be pretty simple, and it can be less expensive, considerably less expensive than the finished subs from SVS or Power Sound Audio.
Yeah. And you get 2 of them.
So I mean, I could go for that. For me, I wouldn't do it because I don't want to finish it. I don't want to deal with the raw MDF. I'll pay the extra money and get the finished sub. But yeah, you could totally go, especially in this room size, right? So yeah, good work.
Terry bought a TCL 55P607. He says it provides excellent picture quality at a price even lower than Vizio, so he's happy with it so far. Very happy with it so far. However, he wanted to use HDMI ARC or audio return channel since the TCL has Roku built in, and he has a surround sound setup using an Onkyo TX-NR. 1009 receiver. He knew the basics, that only one of TCL's HDMI inputs offers ARC, audio return channel, and that only the primary HDMI output of his Onkyo offers ARC. So he carefully wired things together using the proper ports. Let's take a quick break here to mention that audio return channel allows the display to send audio back down the HDMI. Usually the HDMI cable you think of as a one-way street. It goes from the receiver, for the source to the receiver, and then the second one goes from the receiver to the display. Okay, and the receiver display, it sends video and sometimes audio, depending on how you're running your setup. But it doesn't necessarily go the other direction, doesn't usually go the other direction. Audio return channel can. What it means is that the display, if it has something going on inside there, which nowadays there's lots of, especially this one, which has Roku built in, they have apps and stuff, you can send the audio back down that same HDMI cable to the receiver. And that's what he's trying to implement here. Okay, it didn't work right away. So he wound up having to call Onkyo tech support. They walked him through having to turn on something Onkyo calls RIHD, which is their name for HDMI CEC.
Yeah.
It still didn't work, so he scoured the TCL setup menus, and buried in one of their selections were adjustments for its version of CEC, HDMI CEC, which one of which was to turn ARC, or audio return channel, on. Why is making ARC function so ridiculously complicated and confusing? Shouldn't it be possible to have a simple message pop up when you connect the two ARC ports together, asking the user if they want to use ARC? Oh, no.
Wouldn't that be a world?
That is totally not the easy way to do that. Okay, first of all, do you understand how many times we would have to answer the "what do I do" when it tells me and it asks me if I want do I want it on or do I want it off? What do we want? And that's exactly what they were trying to get away from. Now, they don't want to have to deal with those customer service support complaints. Why they bury it in here? My guess is that HDMI CEC is basically the two devices talking to each other in order to know their states and all this other stuff. It makes sense that within that functionality is where ARC would live. That just makes sense to me.
But I mean, if you're not a technical person, how on earth would you know that? I mean, you're not even going to know what HDMI CEC stands for. That's a bunch of alphabet
First of all, nobody's even calling it that. They don't call it that. They call it RIHD or something like that, or smart.
Samsung calls it AnyNet Plus.
Oh, God, that's just the worst. AnyNet Plus is just like, I didn't know what that meant. I was
LG's is what? SimpLink?
Oh, Link. Right? Whenever you say Link, I'm guessing it's HDMI CEC.
Well, sure, but I mean, if you're non-technical, how on earth would you know that?
I understand. So no, you're right. Yeah. I'm not saying you're right. I'm saying that. How long have we had this podcast? How long have you been on this podcast with me? How about that?
I mean, 5 years, I guess. Something
about like that, right? How many times have we got asked about ARC?
Yeah, not that often, really. And that's the other thing. I mean, the vast majority of people don't have an AV receiver with surround sound.
Yeah.
Now, where there's going to be more common would be a sound bar, maybe, because quite a few sound bars now have HDMI connections and use the audio return channel.
And those people who are doing those sorts of things a lot of times have the same brand.
Yeah. But
sound
really,
bar.
The vast majority of people just use the TV's built-in speakers. So that's kind of why the default is to have it turned off so that it's not doing weird stuff between the sources and the display. Yeah. And they're kind of like, well, for the few people who actually need it, maybe they'll dig through the manual like you did and find the thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is dumb. Of course, this should be more user-friendly. This is supposed to be consumer electronics, right? Of course it should be better than it is, but HDMI is a bag of hurt.
I think that's what they think consumer electronics means. Like, we sell it to them, and then they use it up, and then they buy some more. And pretty much. That's what I think that's the consume part for them. I don't think it's that we are customers that need servicing or devices that make sense. I mean, can we all agree that the PlayStation's menus, and really the Xbox menus aren't that much better, but the PlayStation, especially the PlayStation 3 menus, were just like an exercise in stupidity. Like, you had 3 different places that you could make video setting adjustments on that thing. At least 2 places for audio that I can think of off the top of my head, right? Insane menu structure. And they're like, this is a game system supposedly for children. At least, yes, we may all be buying them for our kids, and then we buy Grand Theft Auto 5 at the same time, so we really know who we're buying it for. But honestly, that menu system's stupid, like crazy, and we're really surprised that audio return channel is hard to do. I mean, first of all, has anybody ever found a use for the Ethernet built-in stuff that they're supposed to do?
Oh.
That's a thing that exists in HDMI.
HDMI with Ethernet, yeah.
The Ethernet,
that's really not been done.
Supposed to be everything that you plug into with an HDMI cable should all have access to the internet from whatever device connected to it has access to the internet. Should all work. Never.
Nope, never really been done.
Never done. It's stupidly stupid. So yeah, this is just another instance of HDMI sucking. So welcome to, I guess, when did HDMI come out? 2000? Monty is looking for...
No, we didn't get a second question.
There's a second question? Oh,
yep.
I'm sorry. We've been warning people for ages to always turn HDMI CEC off, and he agrees with us since it has caused him issues in the past. But ARC apparently requires CEC to be on, so why? I already answered that. I think I know why. And why can't manufacturers come up with a better and more straightforward way to implement ARC?
So
there's
first
no
of all,
monetary motivation behind that. That's why.
There are some, like my Marantz AV receiver, ARC is actually separate from HDMI CEC.
Okay.
So it is possible to implement them as separate things, but the main reason they typically require you to turn HDMI CEC on is because, let's say you activate your TCL Roku TV's built-in Netflix app.
Okay.
What they want to have happen is that you hit the Netflix button, it goes to the Netflix app, and because of HDMI CEC, the TV automatically sends a signal to your AV receiver to turn the AV receiver to the TV input. And on a lot of AV receivers, the TV input, which is what is the name for the audio return channel, is not actually an input you can manually select. A lot of them are set up so that it only auto-selects that when it receives an audio return channel signal. So for that bi-directional signal stuff to work, for it to sense that it's supposed to go to the TV input, HDMI CEC has to be active for that to work. So it really depends on if your AV receiver has a manual way for you to activate the ARC input or not. If it doesn't, then it's relying on HDMI CEC to send it the signal so it knows to go to the correct input. That's the why. It's a stupid why, but that's the why. Why isn't it simpler and easier to implement? Why isn't all of HDMI better? The whole thing is bad.
I know.
It's all copy protection.
I was going to
really
say it is copy protection. That is what HDMI is about. HDMI has never been about consumer level
performance.
Well, not even performance, convenience. It was sold. The bill of goods we were sold is one cable solution. Your life's going to be easier, and they have wrapped up a one cable solution, a cable that's designed idiotically, that performs in such a way that makes troubleshooting with it almost impossible.
Yeah.
Like once something goes wrong, it used to be you could unplug something and plug in something else, and you would know that it was the cable was the issue. You can't do that with HDMI. And it's all the bill of goods we were sold is this was going to make our lives easier. All it's done is make it more difficult, more expensive because the cable is really hard to create, and it's all because of copy protection.
19 twisted pairs. That's all you have to know. Inside of that cable are 19 twisted pairs of wire.
Why?
Terrible design.
Just could have done the whole thing with fiber optics. Just as easily. Just cheap. Stupid. Monty is looking for headphones that his kids can use in the car. They've been using some monoprice over-the-ear headphones, but the wires have come a bit loose and the sound is cutting in and out, which the kids don't like. I can't imagine why.
Fair enough.
So he was wondering if there's any decent wireless headphones we could recommend for about $30 a pair. Okay, so the car I currently drive is a 2003 Honda Pilot. It was the first generation Honda Pilot. My parents tested the car, loved the car, and bought the car. My brother's autistic. I've mentioned that about 100 billion times on this, and oftentimes in order to tolerate any sort of driving, he needed to watch movies, and this was before the years of iPads and all that stuff. So they had the DVD system put in there with the little wireless. It's actually IR headphones that are in there. They are awful on almost every possible conceit. They're uncomfortable and they sound terrible. And if you put your hand in front of your face, the sound cuts out. But there's plugs in the front there. There's plugs in the front that you can manually plug in 3 sets of headphones, which is more than enough for the 3 children I have. It's actually exactly enough for the 3 children I have. My kids break headphones. Like my 14-year-old son chews on the cables while he's listening to things.
Sure, okay.
So very rarely does he have 2 headphones. He usually has 1 and a frayed wire on the other side.
Yep.
And then he'll find some earbuds or something like that, and then he'll use those until he chews through one side, and then he'll find some more ones or whatever. My suggestion here, sir, is not to try to buy $30 headphones for your kids. My suggestion is to go to like Target or Walmart and go find some earbuds or cheap headphones.
What about like the Koss Porta Pros? Those are good sounding. Those are the on ears. Those have the lifetime warranty.
Which are those? I've never heard of those. Have I heard of those?
Those are like, well, yeah, the Koss Porta Pros are like, what would you call them? They're like legendary because they give you this crazy lifetime warranty where they'll just keep replacing them. Like
that's about the only
nauseum.
thing. That's about the only thing I would suggest. Then I mean, because with me, what we did is
they're cheap. They sound decent, and they keep replacing them when they break.
We bought like a dozen pairs of headphones. They're just like earbuds and stuff like that. And my son were like, "Oh, they don't really sound that good." I'm like, "You stop chewing on them." And I have given them all decent headphones at one point or the other, and they've destroyed every single one of them. So the other thing I did too one Christmas was Santa gave them all like entry level $20 over ear plastic Sennheiser headphones, which they loved, and they sounded pretty decent. But they don't hold up to a lot of abuse. So how abusive are your children? Because that would be a very, very good option, I think, for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want something that was, because his second question was that he wants to make sure that they don't damage their hearing, so he wants. He was thinking active noise cancellation, and maybe they'll just naturally keep the volume down. But I think the better thing is headphones that have a volume limit on them.
Yeah.
So the Wirecutter did a really comprehensive comparison of a bunch of kids' headphones, ones that are directed at kids. And they basically came to the conclusion that almost all of them were terrible.
Yeah.
They didn't do what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
They sounded awful.
Yeah.
The kids hated them, everything. But they came across one from a company called, I guess it's Puro, P-U-R-O anyway, the BT 2200s. Now, they're about $100.
Dang.
So that's the problem. But they're Bluetooth or wired, so they have a removable cord.
Okay.
So you can have them be Bluetooth if you want. The battery lasts 18 hours, they say, the built-in battery. So you can remove the cord, or the nice thing, I like ones where you have the option of putting the cord back in if the battery dies or whatever, right?
Right.
And they're like, these ones actually do have the decibel limitation. They'll play up to about 85 decibels and no louder. So that's still loud, but it's not, it'll make sure that you don't get damaged hearing. You can listen to 85 decibels straight for, I think it's 4 hours, right? Before there's even a chance of any hearing loss. So yeah, I mean, that's a good choice, but they're expensive. To me, I'd grab a bunch of the Koss Porta Pros because they're super cheap and they'll keep replacing them if your kids break them.
Yeah, and when it comes down to this volume too loud thing and active noise canceling, all it does is it takes like any sort of background hum.
Yeah.
So that's where they're good on airplanes. On airplanes, there's like that constant noise on an airplane or on a bus or something like that. It does not, I mean, it has no ability to block out your children speaking or particularly loud sounds or anything. It's all about that hum that's back there. So will that make them keep the headphones lower? Unlikely. The only thing that's going to do that is you do what I do: random headphone checks.
Sure.
I do. I'm like, give me your headphones. And I put them on. I'm like, this is too loud. Turn it down.
But I mean, those Puros will work. They're $100. So yeah.
I'm going to try to maybe one more in. We'll see here.
Yeah, I'd love to get down to Jeremy's, but we'll see what we do.
It's not going to happen. Andrew on Facebook. Andrew's theater is 12 by 18. His TV is it's 12 feet by 18 feet. His TV is on one of the 12-foot walls, and his sectional seating puts his primary seat roughly 12 feet away. So he isn't on the back wall. He's close to it.
Nope, he's got about 6 feet behind him.
He's been using a Samsung 55-inch KU7000 UHD TV. He loves the picture quality, but he has buyer's remorse about the size. Price-wise, he could probably afford to replace it with the Vizio E65 EO, I guess. Yeah. Would that model at 65 inches be worth replacing the Samsung? I did a little research. This Samsung is edge-lit.
Yep.
And actually did not get high marks in picture quality in the reviews that I saw. So
yeah, middling.
I would, especially black levels, which you would expect from an edge-lit thing. And this E series does have local dimming.
It does, yeah. It's a small number of zones. I think it's only 12 or 16 zones, but at least the backlight is behind the screen, not on the edges of it.
I kind of think it would be worth replacing it, to be honest with you. I mean, size-wise, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, from 12 feet away, ideally, you'd have like an 85-inch screen.
Right.
That's not in the cards.
Not in the cards, no.
But I mean, from 55 to 65 is certainly noticeable.
Should be. I mean,
it's 100% noticeable, and I kind of think the Vizio E series is a better TV anyway.
Yeah, I think the picture quality is going to be. I think it's going to be better. I'm hoping you'll notice that it's better.
You'll certainly notice that it's larger.
Yeah, it's going to be bigger.
So I think there's a pretty good argument for doing this.
Yeah.
It's both the better size and I think the better picture.
Tom K. So obviously that's not me. That would be Tom A. Tom has a 130-inch 2.35 to 1 projection screen. He has 2 rows of seat, one row 13 feet from the screen, the second row 17 feet from the screen. He's been using a Panasonic AE8000 projector with an anamorphic lens. It has served him well, but now he's looking to upgrade to 4K and HDR. His budget could potentially go as high as $6,000, but his wife would be much happier if he could get it close to $4,000. He really liked it to offer motorized lens adjustments with memory.
Okay.
All of that has led him to consider the Epson 5040UB, but clearly there's the expectation that they'll soon be announcing a new model to replace the 5040. So should he wait to see what Epson might improve with the new model?
I mean, at this point, absolutely wait for CEDIA.
I would wait
see what they say.
I would wait for CEDIA. I would not wait for CES. I would wait for CEDIA.
No. But I mean, CEDIA is a month away, and it's not as though you're without a projector right now. So I'd certainly at least say what they have on offer might be barely anything new.
Yeah.
At which point you go, all right, the 5040 is going to go on clearance in a month, so I'll pick it up at a great price.
Right.
Or you find out, hey, there's something really worthwhile in the 5050 UB or whatever the model number ends up being.
Right.
And since CEDIA is quite close, wait 1 month at this point.
I agree. So he's fairly sure he'd be fine with Wobble K as far as 4K compatibility goes. But if he stretches it to the upper range of his budget, are there any genuine 4K options that he could be considering? No. Do not stretch it to the up. Did you hear what your wife said? She said $4,000. Do not come to me, sir, and try to get me to tell you to spend $8,000 on a. You can get Rob to do that for you. You should spend $4,000 or less.
I mean, there's the DLPs, which are still kind of Wobble K. I mean, the DLPs genuinely have 8 million unique pixels, but they're starting with 4 million and then wobbling to get to 8. The ones like the Epsons and the JVCs are a 1080p panel to start, so they're starting with 2 million and wobbling to get to 4. So the DLPs technically have the higher resolution, but they actually have worse black levels, like at this price range.
Right.
They have worse black levels than the Epsons or the JVCs. So I'd just go for the Epson or JVC Wobble K. That's what I would do at this price point for sure. I mean, who knows? Maybe Sony will bring something down, but right now their least expensive genuine 4K is still $9,000.
Right.
So
he's mostly concerned with getting a good implementation of HDR with great black levels. So what do we think? Is Epson still the way to go? I think that you should ask us in a month after CEDIA. Because
I mean, I'm so tempted to say that I really, so we know JVC is going to be announcing some new models.
Yeah.
The 5070, which has a retail price of $7,000, but right now you can find places that are selling it for $5,500. Right. So there's a 4070, there's a 4070 or a 4020, a 5020, and a 6020 and a 620. There's no reason to get the 620 because the 620 and the 520 are the same projector, just hand selected parts in the 620. But the 420 doesn't have the DCI wide color filter in it, and the 520 does. So the JVC 520 is like,
is it 520 or 5020? Because you keep alternating.
It's 520.
Okay.
So it's the RS 520. There's also a sister model called the X770. So that's where I was getting the 70 from. Sorry, late in the podcast, I'm starting to mix up numbers.
It's all right.
520, RS 520, JVC RS 520. That's like the butter projector. So when it goes on clearance, it's gonna hit $4,500. That's a given, because all the previous JVCs of the same model have hit $4,500 when the new model comes out.
Right.
$4,500 for the RS 520. Ooh, is that attractive? Like that's, if I was getting a projector and I had between $4,000 and $6,000 to spend, $4,500. I bet you could get your wife to agree to $4,500 because that's not so much above $4,000. You talk about wanting the best black levels, that's got the best black levels. You talk about HDR looking as good as it can on a projector, that's the one. So I'm like, wait for CEDIA, the new JVCs get announced, then you grab an RS 520 on clearance. That's what I would do.
I agree. But definitely only spent $4,000.
Yeah.
Jeremy's dad tried to out Magnapan's MMC speakers, and he's become a big fan. He's planning on purchasing a pair of Magnapan 1.7i's or 3.7i speakers for use in a 2-channel system.
It might actually be surround sound, given the processor he was looking at. So, but it's a pair of the large Magnapan towers. That's we know that. Yeah.
So Jeremy's dad had initially planned on using a NAD M17 surround sound preamp and a separate 2-channel amplifier, but now he's having second thoughts after hearing Jeremy's Denon AVR X4300H. What did he hear?
I know, right?
What did he hear?
With what speakers?
What did he hear? What did he hear? I don't understand, but whatever. If his dad were to get a Denon receiver, would it have any issues powering the Magnapan speakers by itself? It would have no problems whatsoever, as long as you didn't turn it up very loud at all.
Right.
Like, it would have to be super quiet. Because I know, I couldn't find anything on the 3.7s because I ran out of time. But the 1.7s dip into 2 ohms.
They do. They're 4 ohms nominal. And because they're 4 ohms nominal, if you took the sensitivity rating at what is normally into an 8 ohm load, so normally it's 1 watt into an 8 ohm load from 1 meter away, but because they're a 4 ohm nominal and dip down to 2 ohms, the sensitivity number actually needs to be adjusted so that it's similar to other speakers. It's like 82 dB efficient compared to most other speakers. So basically with 1 watt of power going into them, they're only producing about 82 dB from 1 meter away. We don't know how far away your dad is sitting.
This would not be a good match.
It wouldn't be my top recommendation, but here is something to be well aware of. That NAD M17 surround sound processor, so it's a seven channel surround processor, it doesn't do Atmos or anything.
No.
It's $5,500.
That's a real expensive
And that's
processor.
Just the preamp.
Yeah.
He was going to get separate amps. It has to get separate amps to go. It doesn't have any amps built in.
Right. But it does sound like he's doing 2-channel because he's only buying a surround sound. I mean, he's only buying a 2-channel amplifier.
Two-channel
I don't know why.
Well, maybe he already has other amps or something though.
Maybe.
You could get, okay, so first of all, let's say he's not going to do 9 or 11 speaker Atmos. Let's say it's 7 speakers or fewer.
I think it's going to be
so
2.
You start,
go on.
Yeah, or it could be 2. But you start by getting a Denon X3300, right? You don't need the 4300 if you're not going to do 9 or 11 speakers. You can get the X3300, which can do 7 speaker processing, but it still has Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 with sub-EQ HT.
Yep.
That's sort of the important thing. It's $500 at Accessories for Less right now, okay? So you saved $5,000 on the preamp portion of this setup. That will buy you some very nice amplifiers.
Yes.
That can connect to the X3300, which has a full set of pre-outs. Now, I would point you straight away to the Monoprice monolith amplifiers, which are built by ATI. $1,000 will get you the 2-channel version. Let's say he's powering a 5-channel system with this. All right, that's $1,300. All 7 speakers, doing 7-speaker setup, that's $1,500 for the Monoprice monolith amplifier, which will absolutely power the Magnapan speakers.
Right.
No problem. So let's say he went for all 7 channels of amplification and the X3300. That's $2,000. You saved $3,500 over just the NAD preamp alone, not even the external amplifiers he was going to buy. This to me is a very easy decision.
Yeah, okay. So let's finish the question so that I can
Sure.
start getting mad. Are there any advantages to using the NAD separates over a DIN receiver? No. So let's go back up. Well, I mean, the NAD separates over a DIN receiver is the NAD has a separate amplifier section that can actually handle. Hopefully, I don't actually look at that. Whatever, he didn't tell us what 2-channel amplifier is going to use, so he might be getting some. NAD also offers like Class D amplification too, which which may or may not work.
I
with
assume
this.
it was going to be a NAD amplifier to go with the NAD preamp.
Yeah, but we don't know. So
Not for certain.
Yeah, so we assume that the advantages of spending the $5,500 plus whatever you're going to spend on the amplifier over the receiver is that it would actually be able to power the speakers, which the receiver by itself cannot. But let's go back up to after hearing your receiver. I don't know what he heard about.
Was it connected to the MMCs? Could have been.
Could have been.
Was it connected to your speakers, Jeremy's speakers?
But the receivers shouldn't have a sonic signature at all. I mean, what you may be talking about is like, I don't hear any hissing. I don't hear any of this. I don't hear any of that, which he may have experienced the last time he bought speakers. This is some dude's dad. So
it could have been an expectation as well. He's like, this is a mass market receiver. I was expecting it to sound bad, and it sounds just as good as what I have already.
Right.
That surprised me.
Right.
But, it could be that.
If that's the case, then I have no problems with this because this is exactly the way it should be. But there is absolutely no reason for you to spend all this extra money on NAD. NAD, okay, straight full disclosure, NAD hates me. Like straight up. I'm not even allowed in their booth. I don't think they remember anymore. Most of those people have probably moved on.
Well, yeah,
but
you'll probably be fine now.
I wrote a couple articles where I was like, your products are dumb. That's essentially what I said. Because they are. They're so dumb. They're just, they're overpriced. They don't do anything. And their explanation for not doing anything is because if we do too much, then the stuff we do will mess up the other stuff, and it'll be messed up because science. I mean, I can't fathom how this companies can go around saying stuff like this, and they do. That's what they do, and they're like, oh, we did this and then we did this. I'm like, yes, you were literally describing an amplifier. We know what that is. You're using other words to describe it, but in the end, you made an amplifier. Congratulations. We could hope you could do at least that. That said, right now, AV receivers, and for a long time, AV receivers have been very, very attractive as far as AV being a head unit for an AV processor. Having the amps in there that you're not using is not a big deal. They aren't sitting there, going, oh, he's ignoring us. We should mess up the video signal, or we should mess up the 2 channels. You're getting Odyssey. You're getting room correction. You're getting a bunch of stuff that you may never, ever, ever use. And if you never use it, that's fine too. But you're also going to get is a whole bunch of extra money to spend on a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about just Rob's calculations is $3,500. I'm guessing it's going to be closer to $7,000 that you're going to save because he didn't factor in the 2-channel amplifier from NAD that you're going to buy. That's probably going to cost at least as much as the processor.
Yeah, and if it is only 2-channel, I was factoring in a $1,500 Monoprice monolith amp. That's 7 channels.
Yeah.
If you only need 2, it's only $1,000. $1,500 total could power this 2-channel system fantastically.
Yeah. And you're going to have all the bells and whistles that you may never need. But then again, you don't use them. It's not that big of a deal. So the way that you roll with this, Jeremy, is this. You get your dad to figure out what he wants. and then give you the money for what he wants. And then you go out and buy this stuff, right? And then you split the rest of it 50-50 with us.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'll take a $3,500 donation.
I feel like that's a fair trade. So your dad, you say, Dad, you're willing to spend this amount of money on all this NAD junk, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Give me all that and unmarked bills, no reason, and then I will bring you back something better for the same price, and then 50-50, buddy. Come on, hook us up. So that's my suggestion. We've got some more questions. Brandon, I'm scrolling past you. You have a lot of questions and stuff. Oh, my goodness. Fred is second on this list.
That's
here.
it.
Is that it? Okay.
That's it. Although we did get some questions just, earlier today. So
yeah,
those will be on for next week, too.
Monday the 21st. So if you sent your question today,
Correct.
We did not mention you, but for everybody else, Brandon and Fred, we will address you first thing next week. That's right. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. If you want your questions answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com.
That is the place to reach us, by the way. Question@avrant.com. If you want something on the podcast,
for sure,
please send it there.
If you do any of the other stuff that I sometimes say on this podcast, or if you decide to try to call us, or because we do have a line or whatever,
goes to a Google voicemail. That's all it does.
Then we will check it, because I get a notification and then I send it out to all the guys. But just hit us at question@avrant.com. All the rest of the contact information that's at the beginning of the podcast. So if there's nothing else, Rob, you got anything to say?
I want to thank our listeners of the week one last time.
Yeah, Longo, Brandon, and Fred for their donations. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Elongo, Brandon, Fred, thanks so much for those donations.
Thank you, Herb from Cross Spectrum Labs, for helping us with that mic for Austin, for Jason and Byron for talking us up. Actually, for Jason for talking us up to Accessories for Less, and Byron for talking us up to Herb, who gave us a microphone, who got talked up by Byron, who gave us the whole thing.
Yeah, I'll thank Jason first. Thanks for talking us up to Accessories for Less. Congrats on that purchase for your parents. Very nice. Avantage from Yamaha AV receiver. And then, Byron, thanks for telling Herb that you bought the U-Mic 1 and Mini DSP from him, and therefore Herb knows about us and was willing to help us out by
That's probably how it happened.
a U-Mic 1 to Austin. So thanks so much, guys. We appreciate all the support.
All right, for AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.